God is bigger than my fear, right? My name is Jennifer Huddleston Kelly, and I am an alcoholic. I've been kept sober since December 5th of 92, and that's my miracle, and the Legacy Group is my home group. And it is such an honor and a privilege to get to be at a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'd rather be at a smaller one. You should have heard him laugh at dinner last night when I said, I'm not really big on large crowds. And they cracked up. And hi, everybody over there. Okay, somebody's probably going to need to get the signer a Red Bull because I'm really amped up right now. I want to thank the committee and my hostess and all of you for your enthusiasm in Alcoholics Anonymous. This is an amazing event. And it's hardly intimidating at all when 20 people have a big book older than me. What I'm instructed to do is tell you in a general way what I used to be like, what happened, and what I'm like now. I'm not that good at it in a general way, and I hope that you won't be shocked at my worldliness and levity, but please know that just underneath it there is a deadly earnestness, and that I have not forgotten the fatal malady, and that it does, that it is out to kill me. And you know, that what we have is a daily reprieve. We have a stay of execution. And what am I willing to do for this one day to protect this gift of sobriety that God gave me? And what I'm willing to do is stand up here and twitch for just a few minutes until the oxygen gets back to my brain. I was born at a very early age on November 16th of 1966. That's 111666 for you Revelations fans. And I was born to a football coach and an English teacher. And they are very nice, very boring people. My mom and dad met, they dated, they got married, and they had sex in that order. They went to work and they went to church, and they did the right thing even when nobody was looking. And I was happy and healthy and well-adjusted for almost 3 whole years. We have pictures. I recognize that this is Alcoholics Anonymous, and I will try to respect the traditions from the podium, but my first drug of choice was attention, and I have not fully recovered, though I'm getting there right now. And right before I turned 3, they brought home a little melon-headed baby named Jill, and she ruined everything. I blamed her for the next 30 years for every decision I made because she interfered with the attention. And she also ruined any opportunity I might have to blame my alcoholism on my parents, because I was willing to blame it on anybody standing still. But she went to high school and graduated. She went to college and graduated in 4 years. And I'm 45 and I'm a sophomore. It's the only thing in my life I've ever paced myself at. And after she got out of college, she went to work for Jesus in Bulgaria. My sister was a missionary, and I was a cocktail waitress in a pool hall. We were both doing God's work in our own way. And while she was in Bulgaria, she met a Bulgarian man. They met, they dated, they got married, and they had sex in that order. And right up until she had my second niece, she worked for Habitat for Humanity. And she did not do that because she had a sponsor that said, you'll die if you don't do service work. She did that because she figured out all by her lonesome that being of service to others is a great way to live. I'm not that bright. I was born with a twitch. I'm like a human chihuahua in a rather big package. And I learned to be funny so that it looked like I meant to act this way. I went to school and I was very involved with Jesus. I know that I neither endorse nor oppose Jesus, but he's part of my story. But I was very active in the church, and I wanted to be a minister when I grew up. And I loved the church. I loved what it was about. I loved singing with the Jesus Freaks. It was a place where I fit in. But I also loved going to Rocky Horror Picture Show on Saturday night. Let's do the time warp again. And I already had several different lives going. My drinking began because I fell in love with a guy. And falling in love with guys and drinking goes together quite well. I scare the fish. I have always loved men. I just got one like 2 years ago. Almost 3. And but I scare the fish. And I was engaged 7 times but never married. I'm not a closer. And so this guy moved to town. He came to the First Methodist Church, and I wanted what he had, and I was willing to go to almost any lengths to get it. On the outside, he was everything I knew I'd never be. He was tanned, he was toned, he was coiffed, he had a waist. I always wanted a waist. I could have done some real damage with a waist. He was preppy when preppy was the thing to be, and I was goth before goth even existed. And he was exotic. He had this accent. It was super sexy. He was from Mississippi. And I don't get out much, so that's exotic to me. And we began to date, and I fell in love as only a 16-year-old girl can. And I started thinking, long before I ever had a drink, I had alcohologic. And I wanted to be a minister when I grew up, and I thought, you know, if I'm going to spend the rest of my life talking about sin, I should probably try some. And being a nice little church girl, I decided that he was going to deflower me, and then he'd have to marry me. And he was perfect. We hated the same people. We were disillusioned by the same things. He taught me how to shoplift. I mean, we had a future. And so one night we went out on this date, and the moon was full, and we just gotten a pretty good haul from the mall, and there was a little Lionel Richie playing on the radio, and that's when I prepared to pounce. I didn't talk to him about the deflowering. I took matters into my own hands. I had seen a couple of Molly Ringwald movies. I had the basic information. And so I prepared to pounce, and that's the moment in which he came out of the closet. I know. That's just the first time that's going to happen. And I am so selfish and self-centered, I thought he was gay at me. And I spent the next 2 years trying to convince him he wasn't really committed to that lifestyle. And he still is. But I got mad at him, and I got mad at God, and I got drunk. My first time to drink was an act of defiance against God, and I meant it. I was tired of being good. If I didn't get my own way, I was going to do it my way. And I started out a closet drinker. Me and my friend Susie got drunk in a closet. And we had a bottle of Boone's Farm Tickle Pink and a bottle of Real Sangria, the middle school wines, yes. And we sat on that closet floor and we got drunk. Susie was a member of the drill team, and she's blonde, and she's like the bite of my life. Because those drill team girls are just delightful, aren't they? You see, inside of me beats the heart of Barbie, but my body's made by Tonka. And I will outlast those broads, but I was so jealous, because these are the kind of girls who would say, I'm cold, and everybody would change the thermostat and get blankets and stuff, and I'm the kind of girl who changes her own tire. And so drinking was a competition for me. I'm a big fan of competition. I just don't tell people we're competing so that I can win. And I decided that night that drinking was going to be my thing, and I was going to be better at it than Susie, because I'm a dainty flower like that. And I discovered that I was. I mean, I just instantly took to drinking. She had a half a bottle, I had a bottle and a half, and that's when the fun began. My parents are not drinkers, and so I didn't know anything about drinking until the night I did it. And what I learned is that if you drink a bottle and a half of wine in a 2-story house, while you are drinking, the house turns into a ship. And we're talking a pirate ship on stormy seas. Because I stood up and lost my balance standing flat-footed on the floor, and I smashed my face into the back of the closet door. And that's when the magic of alcohol began to happen for me. You see, I'm intense and I'm sensitive, and I'm intensely sensitive. I do feeling casseroles. I'm always jealous of people who can do one feeling at a time. And my face made impact with the back of that door, and not only did I not have to feel my emotions, I didn't have to feel my face. And that night, Susie and I came out of the closet, quite literally, and we laughed and we talked and we wet our pants and we puked. It was the most beautiful night of my life. This is the drunk I'll be trying to get back to for the next 10 years. Just wetting my pants with a friend. And then we passed out, and we came to the next morning, and I didn't know anything about drinking, but I learned something else that next morning. A hamster had slept in my mouth. My tongue had grown hair. And I leaned over the bathroom, and I drank several gallons of water over the bathtub, and I drank several gallons of water, and I came downstairs, and my stomach turned into a lava lamp. And we were at this Hispanic girl's house, and her mother made huevos rancheros for breakfast. I know. And so we puked again. And then I got on a bus to sing for Jesus. And I loved it. I mean, I loved both of those things. I loved how it felt to be a part of doing the right thing and singing with the Jesus freak. And I loved how it felt to run off to the parking lot and to meet with those boys and drink out of that 12-pack. I mean, I loved both of those things. And my book said that I could quit right there. But why? I am having fun. I mean, early in my drinking, there was a tug of war about that. But here's how I decided. You see, I would go to church and I would sing those songs and I would hear that sermon and I would get that warm, fuzzy feeling. But about Tuesday, my twitch would start coming back. And I couldn't summon with sufficient force that feeling that I had had on Sunday. But let me tell you about me. Alcohol is so powerful in my life, I don't even have to drink it to feel the effects. All I have to do is plan my next drunk. And I get a sense of ease and comfort that comes over me at once just by planning my next drunk. And so I got drunk. I got drunk and I went to jail before I even got out of high school because I'm an overachiever. Me and the gay boyfriend stole a street sign and went to Alcatraz. I mean, I wept uncontrollably. It was terrible. He was on one side of the cell block and I was on the other, and he said the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And I've been in AA almost 20 years. I've heard dumb stuff. But this guy said, "Tell your mom and dad it's my fault." And I said, "You can bet on it, buddy. You do not have to tell a girl like me to blame you. This is something that came with the package." I am truly grateful for an inventory that showed me that he had neither the brains nor the maracas to come up with this great plan. It was all me. But I tell you that story to tell you this one. The next morning after I got bailed out of jail, I was the youth speaker at the First Methodist Church. I had a big curling iron burn all the way across my forehead. And I can't prove it, but I'm pretty sure that's the day I stopped looking the world in the eye. And it's an important part of my message to tell you that that had nothing to do with them. I still go to that church today. And I believe that I could tell them the story I'm telling you tonight, and they would carry the same message of love and hope to me that they always had. My mother would die. But I really believe that they would absolutely carry the same message of love and hope. What changed was me, was my guilt, my shame, and the knowledge in the core of my being that I would drink it again as soon as humanly possible. Because it provided for me what nothing else ever had. It was okay in a bottle. I got out of high school and I went towards college. You've heard how well that went. And the reason was I got scared and I really was. I just didn't know how to do this. I graduated from a really big high school and I was pretty well known. But I got to college and I was anonymous and I just wandered around there with my little headphones on going, meh, because I don't want you to know I don't know. I'm pretty clear on I don't know, but I don't want you to know I don't know because something horrible could happen. You might help me. And And I was getting suicidal as soon as I got to college. And thank goodness back then the drinking age was 19, and I turned 19 in November, and I got drunk and fell in love. My first night of legal drinking, I fell in love with a guy named Humongous. He was a freshman too, but he was 28. And he had long hair and a long beard, and he didn't like shoes, and well, his friends called him Humongous. And I still don't know why, but that night we got drunk and fell into weird. There were a couple of things that made him the ideal boyfriend. He had no job and no car. For some people, that would go on their cons list, but men wander off on me, and what I discovered is that if you date a man with no job and no car, you can drop him off somewhere, and when you come back later, he's still there. Or he's really easy to track because he's on foot and he looks like Sasquatch. And so that night, we put his bicycle in the back of my car, and we went off to the commune. And it's a much too long story, but this was the 80s, and Nancy told me to just say no to drugs, so I did for a while. And but Humongous and his friends were saying yes. And this is the Al-Anon part of my story, the alligator part of my story. He and his friends were tripping on acid, and what I will say for them is they were very organized people. I have noticed that alcoholics get in the middle of a drunk and go, we need a plan, and we have absolutely no equipment to make one with. Now, these guys were doing all their planning on the front end, which is brilliant in its simplicity. And they would build a bonfire and hire a band and synchronize the sundial, whatever. And they would all do this stuff all at once. And I had a responsibility at these parties. I was the chaperone for their acid trips. And I had two responsibilities. I had to make sure that they didn't run into the fire or touch sharp things. And I got instantly good at this job. And I had fun. Now, I didn't know it until I did an inventory in Alcoholics Anonymous, because I have to be sober to get honest about my drinking. But the reason I loved these guys were they were not the kind of people who were going to say, Jennifer, we're concerned about your drinking. They are off naked in a field playing tambourines. They are not counting how many beers I'm drinking. And so I got to sit on the cooler and drink the way I like to drink, and nobody bothered me. And it was a beautiful time. I liked having a boyfriend, so I got 5 or 6 more. Just because this is AA and I'm supposed to be honest, I will tell you that maybe none of them thought of me as their girlfriend. But I've noticed that alcoholic women kind of have a sliding scale on what constitutes a relationship. And it's my story, so I get to tell it the way I want to. Can I get an amen? Anyway, so I start dating, in quotes, these different guys, and we didn't go to movies or dances. We got drunk, and I put on costumes, and I pretended to be whoever they wanted me to be, and I had fun. And then I came to, and I'd have to figure out what day it was, and where my car was, and who are you? And never a fun exercise. And believe it or not, college didn't go that well for me. I wasn't excelling at their higher education, and the boyfriends started finding out about each other, and they invited me to pursue other things. That was really a dark time in my life. I walked into a bar with one guy I was seeing, and another guy was there, and I'd read some Harlequin romances. I knew what was supposed to happen, and they were supposed to fight for my honor. And here's what really happened. One guy walked up to another guy and goes, you can have her. And the other guy goes, no, dude, I'm pretty sure you had her first. And they got to drinking together, sharing stories, and at the end of the night, they're playing rock, paper, scissors to figure out who gets the pleasure of my company or gets stuck with it. I'm not sure. And I got furious because I've got that slinky of a mind that twists everything around, and suddenly I'm the victim and they've humiliated me. And I got out of that town. I had 9 hours of college credit. I was ready to take on the world. So I made my big Geographic. I moved 1 zip code away. I'm not brave. I drove over a bridge and a lake, and it's a whole new world. And I got to this new town. It was going to be completely different. I decided I was going to get rid of my hippie thing, and I was going to try something new on. And so I decided to be a cowgirl. And I went to this place, the first hairdresser shop I could find. I sat down in a chair, and I said, "Twizzle me up some cowgirl hair." I started talking like Reba McEntire at once. And this was the 80s, and everybody was perming. Dogs were perming, guys were perming, everybody had a perm. And so I got this perm, and the girl who was doing my hair, she said, do you party, don't you? And I was like, well, yes, I do. I thought it was my aura, because I'd been hanging out with the hippies. I did not know that beer came out your pores. And so we got drunk and did my hair, and yes, it's going to turn out exactly as bad as you think. I wound up with this giant shrubbery on top of my head, and then she started cutting, and we were pretty drunk at that point, because what I wound up with was an asymmetric haircut. I had long hair on one side and short hair on the other, which made me look perpetually confused, and I kind of was. She turned me around in that chair, and there are 3 heads there, and they've all got bad hair. And she's bobbing and weaving behind me going, nobody in town has this haircut. And I'm looking in the mirror saying, nobody in town wants this haircut. But she said the magic word. She said, "You gonna go honky-tonkin'?" And I said, absolutely. Now, at this point in my life, I've never honked, nor have I tonked. But I knew it involved cocktails, and I was off to the races. I went back to the place. There was a place in downtown with a big orange horse, and I got me some hot pink ropers and a belt buckle the size of my head. And that night I went to a little place in Lake Dallas called the Moonlighter. It was a swank establishment with a rock parking lot and dually trucks with guns in the gun rack. Romantic little place where when I walked in, all the heads turned. My God is very gentle with me because I was almost 10 years sober before I put together that maybe my lopsided hair could have had something to do with that. But what I know is that at the Moonlighter, those men treated me special. They would say romantic things like, sit on my lap and I'll buy you a burr. And I would. And the reality of it was that I was 19, 20 years old. I was a full-blown alcoholic, and I was eager to please. And I went off to be a honky-tonk angel by night. By day, I was a preschool teacher, which I do not recommend if you're going to be hungover every day of your life. Because there were a bunch of little 4-year-olds going, "Miss Jennifer, Miss Jennifer, Miss Jennifer." And I got one of those hangovers where if I sneeze, one of my eyeballs will shoot right out of my head. So Miss Jennifer's saying, "We're going to need to be quiet today." And I'm detoxing in the daycare, and I'm grateful that's funny today, because I knew that it was a privilege to get to take care of those kids, and yet alcoholism is much stronger than my desire to do the right thing. As a matter of fact, while working at that daycare, I began to use outside issues. It's not something I'm proud of. As a matter of fact, it's a thing I'm greatly disappointed in myself about, because I was never going to do that. But it's one of the ways that I know the progression of this disease, because I had said no to it a million times. I was at a party with the girl who screwed up my hair, and she offered it to me one more time. And I said, I'm not going to do it. And she said the magic word. She said, it'll make you last as long as the party. And I said, get out of my way. And I crossed a line I was never going to cross, one of many that I was never going to cross. And off we go. And it made me a very quick preschool teacher. And eventually I quit teaching preschool to go be a bartender. And because pretty much it's the same job as drunks and 4-year-olds. It's just the refreshments are better at the bar. And I got paid to drink. And at least that's the way I looked at it. My employer had a different idea. Then that's when I started getting DWIs. And I got one, and That's no big deal. I mean, I just kind of figured it's like patches in the Girl Scout. All party girls get one DWI. It's like waking up with a guy who, in the morning has fewer limbs than he did when you were dancing with him the night before. It happens. So you get your patch, and wish that weren't a true story. 'Cause I still have flashbacks on that one. But I just figured that happens, and then less than 6 months later, I'm on the side of the road getting a second DWI. And man, if you want to make the state of Texas mad, get a second DWI before you've been convicted on your first. Yeah. And so that's when I started really thinking about things, and I discovered I did have a problem, had a driving problem. And so I moved next door to my bar of choice. I got me a home bar, and I thought that would solve the problem. And what happened to me was I sat on the same bar stool. This is not what happened. The way that my disease progressed is that I sat on the same bar stool night after night, day after day, week after week, year after year, developing what my friend Blind Joe calls the skid row of the soul. And there were men and no men, jobs and no jobs, utilities and no utilities. I'm an alcoholic woman, and so I put myself in situations and circumstances that I had to be sober to get out of, and I was never sober. And some things began to happen to me that were, I could no longer call a party. But it is one of the reasons that I know that I'm an alcoholic, because my book tells me that these situations and circumstances that I found myself in would be a sufficient reason for a heavy drinker or a normal drinker to stop or moderate. But I am not a normal drinker or a heavy drinker. I'm an alcoholic. And one of the very first words that I ever looked up in Alcoholics Anonymous was oblivion, because our book says that's why we drink. We drink seeking oblivion, and the definition that I found was to seek to forget or to be forgotten. And that's why I drank. From then on out, it was no longer about play. It was no longer about fun. It was drinking to forget or to be forgotten. And gradually things got worse. And the rest of my drinking is just the same thing, night after night, day after day, week after week, year after year. As I said, I was engaged 7 times but never married, and I wound up after the last engagement going home. We got really close that time. He went into the Navy, so he forgot what a jerk I was, and I forgot what a jerk he was, and we tried to get married shipped ashore, and that was delightful. And but thank goodness, he kind of forgot and married somebody else. And I went home to my mom and dad, and I brought alcoholism home to them, and they were watching me die one day at a time. And but I still drank in that other town, and so I was driving there after work, and one night I headed home, and I got a felony DWI, and it wasn't the most trouble I'd ever been in, and it's not the most afraid I ever was. The only thing I know is that I told the truth that night. When they asked me how much I'd had to drink, I told them $67 worth, because that's how much the tab was. And when we got to the interrogation room, when they asked me if I thought I had an alcohol problem, I said yes. And when they asked me if I thought I was an alcoholic, I said yes. I don't know why. Except when I came to AA, they talked about being sick and tired of being sick and tired. And that sounded just about right. I do know that I got a sense of comfort, of relief from just saying those words. And I sat in a jail cell and I had a moment of clarity. I always recommend a jail cell is a pretty good place to have one. And I thought about why I drank. And I drank for the very same reasons that I come to Alcoholics Anonymous. I wanted to fall in love. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to be a part of something. But you see, alcohol took away what it had initially provided. And I was going back with the hopes that something that it had given me in the beginning would come back, and it just didn't. And for the very first time, I sat in that jail cell, and I didn't feel like, what's a nice girl like me doing in a place like this? That night, I realized that I belonged in that cell. Because the only way that I knew how to halfway feel okay was to put something in my body that made me a danger to myself and to others. And the only way that you could be safe was if I was locked up. And I sat in a jail cell, and I thought about the meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I made a vow that I would go right up until they let me out. And then I went to go see my high-priced attorney, and he worked out of his garage, and he didn't have any good news for me. And I started to go to AA, but then I knew this guy who had 8 DWIs, and here's a man with a real answer. So I went back to my home bar, and I went to go talk to Jimmy. And the only thing that happened when I went to go see Jimmy is that I told him when they set my drinks on the bar that I wasn't drinking that night. He sat down with Jimmy, and I told him about the trouble I was in. Jimmy looked across the table from me, and he said, Jen, I can afford to be the kind of drunk I am, but you can't afford to be the kind of drunk you are. And I know that what Jimmy was talking about was money, because he'd been paying his attorney in cocaine, and he'd been postponing his consequences. He knew he wasn't going to get out of it. He was just postponing it. But what I thought about that night was what I had paid willingly to get drunk. And it was everything of any value in my entire life. Nobody ever took it from me. I gave it away. I traded it for a temporary sense of ease and comfort. And I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that nothing good could ever come in my life and stay unless I could learn a way not to drink. Because drinking took away everything good that ever came into my life. The other thing that happened was that at some point there was a drink in front of me, and I had been drinking before I recognized that I had made a decision to drink. And I knew I could never get or stay sober by myself because I had not intended to drink that night, and it scared me to death. I spent the next 10 days driving around an AA group. Do we have any orbiters? From sunup to sundown, I drove around a little greenhouse in Plano, just around and around. And I would lock myself in my parents' bathroom and practice saying, my name is Jennifer and I'm an alcoholic. Oh, God, no. I would just cry. And on December 4th of 1992, I reached what my book calls the jumping off place, where I could no longer imagine life with or without alcohol. I was desperate. And I made a deal with God in the parking lot of that little group at that little greenhouse, and I told God I would go to one meeting, and if I heard something I could hang on to, I'd go back for one more, and that was the only thing I could promise. If it didn't work, I was going to kill myself. And God can work with that kind of willingness. Because I walked into the Plano group, and it was a wonder to behold. It's the quintessential AA group. It had brown walls. Nobody knows what color they started out, but they were brown when I got there. You opened up the door, and the smoke poured out, and the Plano group was the place where furniture goes to die. Y'all got some of those too, huh? When Grandma says that couch has got to go, it goes to the Plano group. And the first chair that I sat down in was made out of 2x4s. It had a wagon train and velveteen on it. I think that's from the era in which it was made. And it rocked. I mean, really, naturally. And but it had these divots in the handles where newcomers sat and rocked and sat and rocked and sat and rocked. And that became my chair, and I sat down, and they turned out the lights, and they lit the candles, and a wonderful thing happened. I knew I was in a cult, but I had nowhere else to go. I mean, nowhere else to go. And the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous began to happen to me that night, because Alcoholics Anonymous brought their best to me. Now, the first half of the meeting was a little shaky, because I hadn't had a drink nor a meeting in 10 days. I had read the book by myself, which didn't do a lot of good. But I didn't want to sound dumb, so I bought a book at half-price books because I wasn't willing to invest the full $5. Look, you know how many times I've joined Weight Watchers? I mean, I'm not really that enthusiastic about long-term solutions. And I think I had equal amounts of fear that it wouldn't work and that it would. But I sat down in that meeting, and I sat there and twitched through the first half of that meeting, and I listened to people share, and I didn't understand a word you were saying. Nothing. Because one of the things that we forget is that the person we're talking to doesn't understand us if we start talking our secret lingo. Sponsor and phenomenon of craving. Are you kidding me? And then one of my greatest teachers in Alcoholics Anonymous shared. His name was Gene. And Gene had a beard down to here and a camo fishing cap. He looked like one of the Duck Dynasty guys. I've been saying ZZ Top, but now I have a new frame of reference. And And Gene was not a member of the Mensa, but Gene knew exactly how to talk to a newcomer. And what Gene said was, I didn't know I was an alcoholic. Hell, I just thought I was thirsty. And I'm crying uncontrollably, going, me too, Gene. And what he said after that changed my life. He said, but my problem is the more I drink, the thirstier I get. Shazam! You see, I'd been running this 10-year experiment at my home bar, watching these mooks with the watches. I don't wear a watch now. I know it's got them really twitching up here. But these people would wear a watch to a bar, and not only would they wear it, they'd do what it said. They'd have one drink, maybe two, a shot on their birthday, and then they would look at the watch, and the watch would say, go home, and they would go. And I would watch these mooks night after night do this thing. Oh, look at the time. Mama's got dinner waiting on me. And I would go, why would you do that? We have pretzels here. Why would you do that? And they would go home. Some other guy would go, oh, look at the time. The game's about to start. And that's when I would turn into the flight attendant. We have TVs here, here, and here. Why would you do that? But I drank in that same home bar for about 7 years, and my question changed from why would you do that to how do you do that? Because I couldn't. And Gina explained why. The more I drink, the thirstier I get, and it begins with the very first drink. So the kicker is I got to not take that first drink. And what he said was that he got a sponsor who taught him how to work 12 steps. And in that process, he got a higher power that he chose to call God. I think God chose to call Gene. It's my thing, sorry. And he hadn't been thirsty for a really long time, and I knew that man understood me. And I knew I qualified for Alcoholics Anonymous because I was just like Gene. And at the end of the meeting, they asked me if I'd like to share, which was a terrible mistake because I haven't shut up since. Except for 1 month when I was like 10 years sober and my sponsor said I'd just like to listen. And that's what I would say in meetings. My sponsor says I'd just like to listen. Because I'm real humble like that. And but I listened to what went on in that meeting. And I think it's really important for us to remember that AA is what we show the newcomer that it is. And it's really not their job to figure out that what's on the door is what we are. But what I heard in that meeting was I'm an alcoholic and so I thought you had to be an and. So I became one right then. I said, my name's Jennifer and I'm an alcoholic and a thief, a whore, and a liar. I didn't know that when you said alcoholic, you pretty much had the rest of that covered. And the only reason I was safe saying it that way was that I looked like Pat from Saturday Night Live. I did. You didn't know what. I looked like an it. I had short hair, a ball cap, boys' shoes. I had some sweats that had become my uniform. They did not know what it was, but it wept a lot. And honestly, I thought I was a lesbian that didn't like women, so there was a little bit of confusion going on. Thought they were going to have to write a pamphlet just for me, but was a little bit confused. But I went on to share how I'd been dying one day at a time, and I told him some of the things that I've been doing. And I told him that the thing I was most ashamed of was that I knew I'd never get or stay sober by myself. And those tacky people smiled and nodded. I thought they should at least weep with me. Oh, she's got a tooth. They smiled and nodded, and what I didn't know was you can fool the fans, but you can't fool the players. And that night I was just desperate enough to be a player in Alcoholics Anonymous. At the end of the meeting, I got the hugs and the desire chip, and they told me to go to Denny's. I used to say they asked me to go to Denny's. I now know they told me, because newcomers are really busy. I mean, we don't want to go anywhere if we don't know what's going on, you know, and so they must have told me to go because I went, and I went thinking that's where you filled out the paperwork. And I sat down in that Denny's, and some things began to happen to me. I discovered that there exists among us a fellowship and a friendliness that is indescribably wonderful. You laughed at things that were not funny. You have no volume control. I have no idea why it's called anonymous, because people kept saying, isn't that just like an alcoholic? And I am underneath the menu singing Kumbaya because I am dying. That ego comes back real quick. I'm sitting underneath that menu going, I was the almost homecoming queen in 1985. You heard what I looked like that night. And but you made me laugh. I didn't know that if you're at Denny's at 3 in the morning, you're a member of AA or a future member of AA. There's nothing to worry about. But right away, I had friends, I had fellowship, I had laughter, and without my permission, I began to have a solution. And I showed up to Alcoholics Anonymous, and you accidentally set the hook. This guy walked up to me and goes, hey, your name's Jennifer, right? And I'm like, whoa, whoa. What have you heard? You know, and he said, really, is your name Jennifer? I said, yeah. He said, did you drink today? I said, no. And he said, welcome to your second day of sobriety. And the big deal, it's not that he knew it was my second day of sobriety. The big deal is he knew my name. And I don't ever want to forget that. The big deal was he knew my name. And I fell in love with you. I came back because I couldn't wait to hear your stories. Before I had a God of my understanding, I had you. I had your stories, and I came back to hear what happened next. You were better than anything on TV. I had to see if Chris and Richard broke up, and I needed to know what happened next. If Bob got a job, and, you know, all kinds of stuff began to happen. I got a sponsor because I got bullied into it. You know, the women and the little pecks and herds. Get a sponsor. Come to the women's meeting. Get a sponsor. They just packed and packed. And I got a sponsor. Now, I didn't know. The first woman I asked, they told me to find somebody I could relate to. The first woman I asked had 3 days of sobriety. That is a dumb thing to tell somebody. But eventually I found a woman with multiple years of sobriety. She hadn't worked on all 12 steps. I didn't know it, and it didn't matter. I did what she told me to do. And she got me active in Alcoholics Anonymous before I really knew what AA was. She used to make me pick up Janet from another planet. And please hear me before I tell this story, that Janet is one of my greatest teachers in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I honor her. I love her. I have no idea where she is, but she truly taught me something that no one else could. Janet had problems other than alcoholism. I have no idea if she's an alcoholic or not, but she showed up for the meetings and she said that she had a desire to stop drinking. And she, I think she had electroshock therapy because Janet could not retain information. And so I would pick her up and I would drive her to the group, and she would say, how old are you? And I'd say, I'm 26, Janet. And she'd start changing the dials on my radio. Oh. And then she'd turn around and she'd say, how old are you? And I'd say, 26, Janet. And we were only going like 3 blocks, and she'd ask me 8 times how old I was. And we get to the meeting, and I'd been told I had to sit and listen, and Janet would be everywhere. She had this giant bag that was like Mary Poppins. I mean, she was pulling all kinds of stuff out of this bag, and she was up and down and up and down. And these people in AA, I knew they were crazy because they just have their meeting with Janet doing whatever Janet was doing. And I couldn't do anything but focus on Janet, like, hello? Somebody fix Janet. And nobody would do it. And I'd drive her home, and she'd ask me 8 times how old I was, and I just got to where I'd say, older now, Janet. And I'd drop her off at the house, and she'd walk inside, and I'd think she's going in there to call me. And that's what she was doing. I'd get back to the group to detox from driving Janet home, and the phone would ring, and it would be Janet, and she'd say, I'd need a ride to the next meeting, and I had just dropped her off. And my sponsor would make me go back and get her. And this went on and on and on. And I would call my sponsor. I'm so mean. I would just cry. Hey, Janet, please make somebody else get her. And she'd say, why are you still here? And I mean, seriously, Janet would shave her legs in meetings with shaving cream. Really? And so I start taking Janet back and forth to these meetings, and during this time, my sponsor told me I had an enormous ego. And I felt so sorry for her because she was sponsoring a lot of women. I'm low self-esteem. I'm not enormous ego, but I didn't tell her that to straighten it all out. I just let her slide. And so I drive Janet to the meeting, and we're on the way back, and all of a sudden I realize God's put Janet in my life. I'm supposed to help Janet. I mean, nobody else is doing this job. It's my turn. So I begin to 12-step Janet in the car. I said, Janet, I'm going to need a favor out of you. These meetings are real important, and I get something out of every meeting I go to, and maybe if you would sit down and listen, maybe you could find you a sponsor. And with a sponsor, you could work the steps, and maybe if you work the steps, your life would totally change. And y'all, I saw it. The lights came on. And I got so excited because I knew she was fixing to ask me to sponsor her. And so I did what would become a pattern. I kept talking until I snuffed that out completely. And Janet said, Jennifer, I got a question for you. And it's our moment of truth here. And I know that God's in the car. And that's when Janet says, how old are you? And I'm watching Janet walk inside. And I start laughing and crying and banging my head on the steering wheel. And then by about the third bang, I realize I have an enormous ego. Because I think Janet needs to change. And the reality is that the 12 steps are a way for me to change so that Janet can be whoever she is. And I began to work the steps like my life depended upon it. I got a sponsor who could work the steps out of the book because my first sponsor didn't know how. And I had a crazy woman who sponsored me, and she read the book. And when we came to a step, we worked it. And one by one, little by slow, day after day, I began to change. I've done everything wrong in Alcoholics Anonymous that you can possibly do, except that I have never stopped going to meetings. I've never not had a sponsor, and I haven't picked up a drink. And guess what? You can mess up and stay. You just got to do those simple things that they teach you in the very beginning. I sat in meetings forever waiting for the super secret. No, the super secret. And they had told it to me at my very first meeting. But I began to change. And what changed for me was that I stopped living from the inside out, and I got to learn how to live this way, where the God on the inside of me could shoot out this way instead of, this is how I always lived. If you thought I was wonderful, I was wonderful. If you thought I was terrible, I was terrible. And all of a sudden, I get a God on the inside of me that's just going to sustain me no matter what. And that took me a long time. I was probably more than 10 years sober before I truly believed that God was going to provide everything that I needed. And I got to work with a ton of crazy women. I never get a sane one, and they don't last long with me. They don't. I always love it when people say, how many women are you working with? Because it takes fractions, you know? And I know I don't do it like a lot of other people. For a long time, I was very rigid, and I decided this is how we do it, and it's the only way we do it. And I discovered I needed to read the doctor's opinion 9,000 times. And if they disappeared, they disappeared. And if they got better, super. But either way, I got to sit down, and I got to read the doctor's opinion over and over and over again. And I hope something else happens. But if it doesn't, then grab another one and sit down, and let's do the doctor's opinion again and again and again and again. And what happened is I'm a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I have a sponsor, and I am a sponsor. I got to fall in love in Alcoholics Anonymous. Well, he's not in AA. But, I tried, but I still scare the fish. But I met a guy that I dated in high school, and he was a nice guy, so I ran him off over and over again. And when I was 40 years old, I got an email. I got a message on, not Facebook, that's way too cool, MySpace. It was back in the day, and I was sponsoring like 15-year-olds, and so I had to get on MySpace to find out what they were really doing. And this guy sent me a message, and it took that long for me to really want a good guy in my life, and it took every meeting that I ever went to. And I brought him here and threw an AA party, and I cornered all my friends and said, if you see anything weird, you tell me. Because I no longer trusted my judgment. And my best AA friend at the time said, he's precious. He's what we've always wanted for you. And I said, how do you know? He didn't say anything. And he said, because Steve looks at you like we look at you, and we love you. So I married him, and we had this wedding that was like a cross between a wedding and a YPAW, and it was just craziness. It was a beautiful day, and it was so much fun, and my AA friends were everywhere. And my daddy cried on my wedding day, not because I looked so beautiful, but because you were so kind. He'd never seen you act the way that you acted at my wedding. He'd never been around you. And he couldn't believe what amazing friends I had in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I said, what were you expecting, those people with the brown paper bags and the trench coats? And he said, yeah. And I said, that was before. And we have had fun. He's not a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't think he needs to be. As best I can tell, the only consequence of his drinking is that he feels like he should sing. And to me. But he is a great fan of Alcoholics Anonymous. And when we got married, some people were asking if we were going to have babies. This was a first marriage for both of us, and it was a little late in the game, and I said, we'll let God decide. And 2 years ago, we were pregnant. And 9 weeks later, we weren't. And no, but it's a really cool story. Because God gave me absolutely everything that I needed through that time. I went to the meeting I needed to go to so that I could get on my knees and say the third step prayer and give that baby in my marriage to God, because I was freaked out. I got to ride around with my husband and pick baby names. And when things went wrong, I had the absolute perfect doctor who told me what it would look like if things were going right, and who told me what it would look like if things were going wrong. And when things went wrong, I cried. I've never heard that bad. For 3 days, I cried, and then I woke up and said, what's next? And I don't understand how that happened. I really thought I did something wrong. I walked around for a year thinking I did something wrong because I was okay. And I kept thinking, I'm not supposed to be okay. I've had breakups in sobriety that jacked me up for 8 years, y'all. I'm not that well adjusted. I'm not that powerful. But 12 steps and a God of my understanding is. He absolutely is. And I walked through that without a thought of drinking. And a year later, on that anniversary, I got asked to talk at this chick thing. Ugh. I'm getting better, but seriously, y'all, there's just a lot of estrogen in one place. And so I go to this chick thing, and at one of the workshops, they're doing this funtivity, and I got this big badge that says speaker on it, and they start to explain the funtivity, and we're going to stand in a circle, and people are going to whisper in our ears. We're going to close our eyes, and they're going to whisper in our ears, and they're going to whisper messages from God. And y'all, I start flipping out. I am so ready to run, and my friend Nancy B's standing there, and she's got that same look on. And she's got a big speaker badge on, too, and I'm like, I'm staying if you're staying. So we close our eyes, and the first lady, thank goodness, the first lady whispered in my ear looked as scared as me. And so I closed my eyes, and she starts to say these things into my ear, and the very last thing, just like an afterthought, what she said was, and you're a wonderful mother. And I was so angry, and these tears just shot out of me. I was so mad. And just like in the book, when that thought came, who are you to say there is no God? this thought came, and it wasn't for me. It was, who told you you're not a mother? And I realized that I did what God told me to do. I gave that baby to him, and I left it there, and that's why I was okay. Alcoholics Anonymous and those 12 steps are powerful enough to walk through anything, and we can be okay. Falling in love with Big Daddy has just been the most amazing experience of my life. It really has. But I tell you what, if he loses his mind and runs off tomorrow with somebody else, I'm going to be okay. Because I know who I am, what I am, and whose I am. We had a very charmed courtship, but the last 6 months have been, orientation. We have tried out all of the vows. Job, no job, health, no health, money, no money. And what we discovered was the same thing that I learned in AA. Teamwork makes the dream work. We can do together what we can't do separately. So if you're new or you feel like you're new, let me just explain to you, AA is so flippin' simple. It really is. It's not necessarily always fun, and sometimes happy, joyous, and free isn't on the menu temporarily. But it's just monkey see, monkey do. It's so easy. The very hardest part is figuring out and staying convinced that you too are a monkey. I'm so grateful I get to hang with you. I'm glad to be here. It's a good day to be sober.
My name is Tony. I'm an alcoholic. It says here there's a light. Okay, I'll take this. My name is Tony. I'm an alcoholic. It's good to be here. It's a privilege to be here, as it is at every Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. And it's certainly a privilege to be asked to speak at a Pacific Group meeting. I want to thank Marilyn for asking me. I want to thank Clancy for the Pacific Group. I don't know if I got the billing right, but what is it like? What happened and what is this like now? Well, I drank for 15 years, which is not long compared to some drinking stories I've heard, but it was long enough for me, and I suffered enough pain at the end to stop or to get help. As you can tell by my accent, I'm from across the water. I'm Welsh, which is a very good reason to be an alcoholic. The Celtic disease, and that's what I heard when I first came into Alcoholics Anonymous. And what happened was that ever since I was a little child, from the age of 4, I just fill you in about my background. When I was 4 years of age, born in South Wales, my first memories of school convinced me that I was from on the wrong planet. I certainly didn't know what anyone was talking about. I had no friends, no school kid friends. I was the source of worry to my parents, especially my father. I was the only child. My father used to say to my mother, there's something very wrong with this boy, which is not the best foundation for mental health or confidence. He didn't mean any harm by that, but that's what he said. And I can remember lying in bed when I was a kid and listening to my father next door whispering to my mother or talking about me. So I didn't have much confidence in myself. And I used to sit at the back of the class in school with my mouth open, and I didn't know what they were talking about. And that stayed with me right up through all the years, through my adolescence, which is a painful time, as it is for everyone, my adolescence, through my early adulthood, if I ever reached early adulthood, right up until that first night in the Pacific Palisades meeting on December 29th, 1975. And I sat in that big room, and a man called Chuck C. got up there to speak, and I realized that I was not alone and that I'd somehow come home. I didn't take that in intellectually. I understood intuitively, down in my gut, that I'd arrived home, that something had happened to me, that something significant had happened to me to change my life. Now, it sounds very simple, but that is exactly what happened. And it changed my life. When I left school, I that I had no future at all. By a series of accidents, I sort of stumbled into the acting profession. I became an actor, and I thought that would fix me. And I thought that if I could work hard and really achieve success, then I would be fixed. The feelings inside me would go away. And of course, there were moments when they did seem to have receded. In about the early 1960s, I started drinking in a real alcoholic way. When I was doing my military service or draft, I didn't get into any trouble with booze. But when I started drinking in the early 1960s, it was the beginning of a rapid descent into what I can describe as hell. And I worked in my profession. I became a successful actor early on. I always worked. I was very little unemployed. But I worked harder than I was necessary, really. I used to be ahead of everyone 3 hours. I used to get to rehearsals 3 hours ahead of everyone else, 7 o'clock in the morning, so that I could beat everyone at the game, so that I knew all my business. I knew everything that was meant to be known, so that nobody could cross me, and especially directors, anyone in authority could even look at me in an odd way. I'd get them. And I knew my stuff. I knew what I was talking about. Well, so I thought. I knew a lot. But it was killing me. Because I started getting quite successful in my job, and the feelings got worse and worse and worse. I don't want to dwell on that side of my life, because that's something that was all part of it. But a lot of extraordinary things started happening. In 1974, one of my big dreams was to come to America. And I came to New York to do a play, and I discovered the magic of the American bar. And they don't close like they do in England. And I'd also discovered tequila. I'd been in America about a year before, here in California, and I discovered tequila. And I loved tequila, and it did things to my brain which really were a warm-up for this program. I went back to England in 1974, early 74, and I used to watch television, and I knew I was coming back to America to do this play. And I used to watch television, and I used to watch programs like Starsky and Hutch. I remember saying to my wife, I was looking at one of these films, I said, I bet they all drink tequila. And she, not being an alcoholic, gave me one of those strange looks that they give you. She's one of those very peculiar ones, you know. She drinks a glass of wine regularly at 6 o'clock every night, pours the rest of it down the drain. Sometimes she pours it back into the bottle if she's poured too much. She smokes 2 cigarettes a day and doesn't inhale. I don't know what her problem is, but she's very, very strange. She's not an alcoholic. And I appreciate that, because that's the way she is. And I have friends who are not alcoholics, and they still are a puzzle to me. Old friends. I've got a friend of 30 years standing, and we go out to dinner sometimes, and my wife and his wife, and they have a half bottle of wine between them. And when the waiter comes and they taste it, my wife usually does the tasting. She's the expert, and she swirls it around in her mouth. I thought, what the hell is she tasting? And then she looked at the waiter. She says, it's a bit nutty. Yes, I think that's going to be okay. They leave it. They leave it. Very odd. But anyway, 1974, I came back to America and came to New York, and I couldn't wait to get to those bars. And I started my job. I started rehearsing, and I turned up for my first rehearsal. There was a party the night before the first rehearsal day, and I turned up smashed, drunk, out of my mind and insane. And I told the playwright what was wrong with this play immediately. I told everyone else what was wrong with them. There was one woman in that party who was an alcoholic, and is a member of AA, and she looked at me with one of those AA smiles. Her name is Mary, and I think it is because of her, the grace of God and Mary, who really saved my skin, because she didn't lecture me, she just smiled at me a lot. And she knew I was a full-blown alcoholic as soon as she met me. We started rehearsals, and the play opened. It was a very successful play, and she used to keep an eye on me, but she never told me anything about alcoholism. Other people pointed her out to me, and they said, Mary's an alcoholic. She's a member of AA. Scar, poor woman. I said, is that why she smokes so much? Because she'd have to smoke to stop herself going crazy. And they said that she doesn't drink anymore. What they were doing, they were feeding me with this information. And one night I took her out for a drink over in the pub or the bar, whatever, and I didn't try to force a drink on her, but I knew that she was an alcoholic, and I asked her a few questions, and then things got worse for me towards the end of my run in New York in 1975. I was very, very ill one night, and I'd been smoking a bit of grass. That wasn't my booze was my thing, but I was very drunk one night, and I'd been smoking Acapulco Gold, whatever that is. And the CIA and the FBI were after me, and so I asked Mary, I said, listen, can you take me out tomorrow? Can we talk? Because I'm in bad shape. She said, yeah. So we went out for lunch next day, and she told me all about alcoholism. She told me all about this program. But in a very, very simple, insulting way, she said, you know, if you don't take the first drink, you can't get drunk. Which was very insulting to my intelligence. And she said it's like getting on a subway from Park Avenue and going all the way down to the Bowery. So you can get off any stop you like. I thought, what the hell is she talking about? She's like an elevator going from the top floor to the basement. You can get off at any floor you like. I thought, what's she painting these pretty pictures for me? I said, I know that. She said, would you like to come to a meeting? I said, no. She said, okay, and she smiled at me. She said, well, maybe you're not an alcoholic. I said, I don't think I am. I've just got a problem with drinking. So I stayed dry for 6 weeks, and it was okay, and I felt quite comfortable. It's one of those deceptive things. The devil had got into me. I stayed dry for 6 weeks, and I really felt okay. I didn't want to drink. I used to go to the bar, drink gallons of tonic water and Diet Pepsi and all that stuff, but I felt all right. I had one scare. I'd been in the hospital in New York with a clot in my leg, because my lifestyle was getting to me, and the doctor said, you're going to die one day. You're going to die pretty soon. He said, how old are you? I said, I was 37. Then he said, well, you're going to die soon. He said, I don't think you'll make it until 40. And I got out of hospital, and that didn't scare me. I went back to the booze, and I went back to drinking, I went back to everything else. But anyway, I got those 6 weeks dry under my belt, and at the end of my last night in New York, I went to a party, and I thought, well, I've got no problem with this now, because obviously I'm not an alcoholic. I've been able to handle it, and I poured into my Diet Coke or whatever it was, vodka, tequila, whatever it was, I can't remember. And that was the beginning of, I don't remember much about that night. Remember nothing, in fact. Next day I got on the plane and came out here to California. June 30th, 1975. And I stayed dry for a few more days. I was so shocked and disgusted with myself because I thought, well, you know, there's something wrong with me. But I stayed dry, and I started work on a television thing. I was up at the beach here at Malibu, and I saw this actress who said, would you like a drink at the end of my first day's work? And I said, no, I better go home because I think I've got a problem with it. She said, well, you know, we won't, just one. It's only 5:30. I said, what is it? She said, tequila. And she added one of those coffee cups, polystyrene cups, you know, and I could hear the ice rattling around. And then I said, well, just one. And 6 months later, I woke up in AA. And that was the worst drinking of 6 months of real hell. I started hallucinating. I spent time up on Trancas Beach. I didn't know where I was most of the time. I started talking to the sea, and it started talking back to me. And I really did hear voices, and I started having quasi-religious experiences, which was very strange because I was an agnostic. And I saw visions. I really did see visions. I went out to this trailer home one night up in Trancas. I think it was up in Trancas. No, Paradise Cove it was. And Paradise Cove. And I walked out. And I came back in and I said to these people in this trailer, I said, I've just been through the Milky Way. I said, uh-huh. Because I looked up at the stars and they came right down to me. I thought I'd been touched by God. And I was in hell. And what happened to my wife left me. She went back in Christmas 1975, back to England to let me die and get on with my life or whatever I was choosing to do. She didn't know what was up. She didn't know what was going to happen. She'd had enough. She was tired and exhausted, and she never nagged me. She was born for Al-Anon, but she never nagged me. She never said anything. She never got in my way. She used to cry sometimes quietly on her own. That used to really get to me. She went back Christmas of 75, and I went off to Arizona in a blackout, and I stayed in some hotel down there. And I had visions of becoming country western singer, believe it or not. I sat in this bar listening to Anthony Hopkins singing Old Dogs, Watermelon Wine, or whatever that was. And Billie Holiday. Yeah, that was good stuff, Billie Holiday. And I played this over and over in this bar, and these people would get fed up with me, and they threw me out of the bar, and I went up to my room, and it was a pretty dirty, lousy hotel, and I wrote on a piece of paper, I met myself in Phoenix, Arizona. I thought that would make a good country western song. And I put it on top of the wardrobe. It's probably still there. I ought to go back and see if it's still there. Because, in fact, that was the irony of that was that I did meet myself in Phoenix, Arizona. I came to terms with something. And I got back on December 27th. I drove back. My poor car was wrecked because I, sort of speeded back, and I was falling asleep at the wheel and all that was going on. I got back to my apartment in West, Wilshire Boulevard, and it was the loneliest Saturday night that I'd ever spent, December 27th. And I went down to the Beverly Glen Market and I bought my bottle of tequila and orange juice, and whatever I was going to do, I was going to just drink myself into the ground or dead. I didn't want to go on. I was so tired and I was so fed up with myself and sick to death with myself. And as I was standing in the line-up waiting to pay the cash at the cash register, this woman was standing in front of me, and she said to the man behind the desk, she said, it's a disease now, alcoholism. And I thought she'd been planted there. I didn't know who she was. She looked at my brown paper bag, the drunk always carries in brown paper bag. She has a disease. They said it's progressive as well. I didn't know who she was. But anyway, I got back to my apartment. It was the beginning of the end of everything, and I felt that loneliness that only an alcoholic, I don't know, maybe other people get it, but that loneliness that I certainly felt was the loneliness of the alcoholic, that deep, gnawing, burning loneliness. And I looked across the square outside the apartment, and the shadows were getting longer. It was 5:30 in the afternoon, and I wanted to die, and I felt like dying, and I felt the saddest I've ever felt. I felt like all those country western songs. The phone rang and somebody invited me to a party up in Beverly Hills, and I went to this kind of nice house, I remember. I don't remember much about it, and I was under the piano most of the time, arguing with someone who later came to this program. And somebody said, I think it's time you went home, and my agent was there, and I stood on the doorstep of this house, and I said, somebody's stolen my car. He said, no, they haven't stolen it. He said, you drove up here and then you drove off. He said, we came and got you. Don't you remember? I said, no. He said, well, you left your car outside your apartment in the middle of the street with the radio on and the lights on. And you don't remember? I said, no. I said, I know one thing. I'm an alcoholic and I need help desperately. I said, I'm finished. And what had happened at that moment, as I stared up the eucalyptus trees outside this house, it all flashed before me. Mary, New York, flashed before me. And the really thing that, like Nancy said in the first speaker, the car, the thing that really got to me, the thing that woke me up was that I could have killed somebody. I didn't care in the end whether I was going to die or not. I couldn't care less. But I could have killed somebody. That was that deep shame that I could have actually killed somebody. I mean, the total madness of really driving blindfolded, in the blackout. And I said to this fellow, I said, I'm an alcoholic and I need help. And he took me back to his house because something had happened, some little pilot light went on in my head. And I started to sober up from a lot of booze that night, from a lot of alcohol that night. I started to feel sober. My head started clear very rapidly. I went back to his house up in Benedict Canyon, and I sat there at his house. And he looked up the number in the book of AA, and I talked, and I said, it's over, I'm finished. And I said, I don't care anymore what happens to me. I said, I just want to get the heat off. I said, I really want to get this monkey off my back. And I was using those terms that I later heard in AA. I may have heard them somewhere else, but I talked about the monkey on my back. And he looked at me, he said, I don't know what you mean. I said, I can't stop drinking, and I've got to stop. So on the Sunday, I sat in my apartment thinking about AA and thinking about getting sober, which is very dangerous for an alcoholic to think too much. So I'm very fortunate to be alive and here tonight. However, I didn't drink that day, and next Monday morning I phoned up the Westwood Los Angeles office, which was on Westwood Boulevard, the Western office, and an elderly lady answered the phone. Her name was Dorothy, and I said, my name is Tony, I'm an alcoholic, and I need help. She said, good. I said, she said, do you want somebody to come around and see you? I said, no, I didn't want anyone in a dirty raincoat coming around to see me. A bottle and the Bible. So I drove my car into Westwood, and I parked it down by down over those old railroad tracks that used to be there. And as I was walking across, I thought, well, maybe I'm making too much of a big deal of this alcoholism. I'm an actor. I'm dramatizing my life too much. Calm down. And this other voice that went on simultaneously in my head said, just get your ass to that meeting and do something for yourself for once in your life. Just move now. It was a big, deep voice, like something out of a radio show. And I walked up the street and I found the office, and I walked up the stairs. I believe the office has moved now, but I walked up the stairs and I walked into this room, and there was this elderly lady called Dorothy. And she was everything I needed to meet at that moment, and the office wasn't what I expected. I expected to see people lying on the floor with 6 days of growth on their chins. And like a weary willy, you know. I expected in AA, I thought people would all hold hands together and you say, you can go out and drink on Thursday and then we'll come out with you and we can drink on Thursday. And you know, that's how I thought it worked. I didn't know what it was. I had no idea that it was the beginning of a whole change of my life. And so I sat in this room and Dorothy talked to me and she said, I said, I'm finished, I'm beaten and I feel terrible. She said, that's good. I said, I feel awful. She said, that's wonderful. I said, I can't go on. She said, that's wonderful. And I looked into her face, I thought, she's either crazy or she's probably a Salvation Army woman that's going to bring out the tambourines. I didn't know what it was, but I didn't care. And I said, what do I do? She said, well, you go to a meeting tonight. And she told me that she was there because her husband had nearly died and he was in the motion pictures business and AA had saved his life. And she wasn't actually a member of AA herself. She was just there looking after the phones because she wanted to pay tribute to AA and because of her husband. She wasn't allowed to stay on in the office, unfortunately, as the years went by. But she was so grateful to Alcoholics Anonymous for what it had done for her family and for her life and for her husband. And I stood up to go and she said, somebody will come and get you tonight, give me your phone number. And as I stood up, I knew she was going to zap me with the bad word, God. But I knew it and I wanted it to do something because I wanted something. I wanted some help. I wanted some power to come into my life. I knew that much. I didn't know anything up here, but I knew something had to come into me to help me, or something had to come out of me to help me. And she said, why didn't you just come home and rest and trust in God? And something welled up in me and I knew it was over. The jig was up and I just grabbed her and I hugged her and I didn't like touching people at all. I didn't like anyone coming near me. And I felt very emotional and I got out on the street and as I was walking back to my car, the most remarkable thing happened. And it lasted a couple of seconds, I can't remember, but I remember the details of it. A big voice said, it's all over, now you can start living. And don't forget one moment of it because it's all been for a purpose. Now get on with your life. And I think I know what that was. I have no theories about it, but it was the presence of a power, God. I don't understand it to this day, but I believe, and I've tried to figure it out, that it was the best part of myself, the very foundation of my being. That came out of me and was particle of essence of life that is in all of us. I'm no theologian, so I can't explain that. But what happened at that moment was that the craving for alcohol left me at that moment, about 11 o'clock in the morning, December 29th, 1975. It's never come back. So a miracle was at work in my life from that moment on. So much so that I called into a Catholic church in Ohio Street. And I saw a priest walking from the church back to his office. I said, can I talk to you, Mum? He said, yeah, sure, come in. I said, I've just found God. He said, congratulations. And he said, well, something's happened. He was, I don't know what it is. What happened? I said, I'm an alcoholic and I've just joined AA, I think. He said, well, that's great. I said, is it religious? He said, well, if you found God, you shouldn't have any problem with that, whether they're religious or not. I said, well, something's happened. He said, well, that's good. He said, you've been had by God. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, you've been had by God. He said, you've been surrendered somehow. He said, like being seduced. It's like being had in sexual terms. I said, really? And I looked at him, he had that little kind of collar on. I said, really? He said, yep. He said, that's what it was. He said, but, he said, AA is a great organization. He said, I know a little about it. He said, but you just do what they tell you. And I got back to my apartment, and later that afternoon, I poured what beer or whatever it was I had in the fridge, I poured it away. That afternoon, the phone rang, and later that morning, the phone rang, and somebody called Don on the phone. He said, my name is Don, I'm an alcoholic. Is that Tony? I said, yeah. So I hear you need help. I said, yeah. He said, have you had a drink? I said, no. He said, because we're devious sons of bitches, all of us. And he put the phone down. He said, I can't take you to meet somebody else phone. And about an hour later, somebody else phone called George. George C. I'll never forget it. He said, my name is George, I'm an alcoholic, and your name is Tony. I said, yeah. He said, I said, I think I'm an alcoholic. He said, good, I'm going to pick you up. What's your address? I told him. He said, good, I'll pick you up at 6:30, and he put the phone down. I thought, damn, man, I can't stop him coming now because I've got to go. The cunning mind was still working, you see. I still wanted a way out, but I knew it was over. I knew I had to go through this. At 6:30 that night, the bell rang downstairs, and I went down, and there was George. He was everything I expected. A light blue jacket on. He smelled of aftershave lotion, and he looked like a Southern Baptist. And he had steel grey hair and crooked teeth, and he had his girlfriend with him. She chewed gum. She said, hi, honey. I sat in the back of their car. I thought, I'm in with the loonies now, the moonies. Oh, he drove up over Sunset, and I could see the back of his grey head, and he talked about the ego, and he never shut up for the whole journey. He talked about bottoming out. I didn't know what he was talking about. But I knew something and I could smell this aftershave lotion. I thought, I'm really in with the crazy people now, but I don't care. I'll do anything they ask me to do. I don't care anymore. We pulled in the car park of the Pacific Palisades group. That big meeting out there. That's my home group, although I live in London now. And as I got out of the car, there was an elderly fellow walking ahead, and he was an actor I'd worked with. He was quite an old man. And he was walking ahead down into the main meeting, and I said to George, I said, what's he doing here? He's an alcoholic. I said, is he really? I said, I just worked with him. He said, well, he's an alcoholic like you. So I went down, and Bob was in the room, and somebody came up to me. A woman was introduced to me, and her name was Laverne, and George said, this is Tony, he's got 24 hours. She said, that's fantastic, and she jumped all over me. I thought, oh, this is promising. Bob came over and said, hi, Tony. He said, we worked together last year for one day on a publicity thing. He said, come on, I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm an alcoholic. I said, oh. I said, I think I am. He said, good. And I went and sat down, and this old actor came and said, hello, Tony. He said, how are you? He said, I've got a chair waiting for you. I'm glad you made it. He knew. I said, did you know? He just gave me that smile. He said, yeah, I knew you were an alcoholic, all right. And I sat there, and the first speaker was this Dr. Don from Palos Verdes, and he looked like everything I dreamed of from The Lost Weekend. He had lank black hair, and his face looked like he'd been walked into a truck. His name was Don, and I'm an alcoholic. I thought, there's a real alcoholic. And I'd always loved the word alcoholic. I was in a play once, a television play, some years ago, before I stopped drinking, my last year before I stopped drinking, and I actually said this thing, and I said, I'm an alcoholic in this play. And I said to the director of this play, I said, that's a great word, alcoholic, I'm an alcoholic. And I was saying it in this play. I think that 12-stepped me about 18 months later, because I looked at this guy, and I thought, there he is, this is the man. And he talked about his car being alcoholic. He only had one headlamp, and and only one windshield wiper. And he talked about drinking vodka or whiskey out of his ski poles. I thought, these people are crazy. And then we had a coffee break, and the next guy who got up was a man called Chuck C. And he was amazing. And he said, my name's Chuck, I'm an alcoholic. And he said, by the grace of God, I'll have 30 years sober this January. I thought, he must be suffering from brain damage. How could anyone have 30 years? But what happened that night was that I sat between Bob and George, and a whole education came to me in a flash. They talk about near-death experiences. Well, I think maybe this is what I was going through in another form. Because I don't know how, because I'm no intellectual giant. I'm no intellect at all. I'm not too smart. But something happened to me. Something rushed through my head. Something rushed into my consciousness which told me everything I needed to know for those moments. And really saved my life. Because I realized that everything I'd been looking for had come to me. That moment. That I'd finally come home. And I don't know how I grasped that. I'm only glad I did. That I'd come home. And that I needn't get my act together. Because I've been trying to get my act together all my life. And Chuck C said that night, he said, you know, he was brought up to outsmart everyone and outwit everyone, and he ended up in the squirrel cage. My father said that to me, God rest his soul. My father was an alcoholic, I believe. And he said, you know, outsmart them before they can outsmart them. You, get them before they can get you. Don't trust anyone. And my father said all those things, but he never acted like it. He was a big softy, like all alcoholics are. But he tried to be tough, you know, and he tried to make me tough. I was a big softy. I was just mush inside. And after the meeting, I looked for my checkbook. I thought, I've got to pay these people. Because I now knew that I was absent. That absent from me was the craving to drink. Something had happened in that one night. Now, being a quick study in many ways, I thought I'd better not trust this too much. I was taken over after, and I met Chuck C. And he said, I was introduced to him, and he was told that I had 24 hours, I was sober a day. He put his arms on my shoulders. He said, you just keep coming back. He said, because we get better than better. He said, we are suffering from a seemingly hopeless disease. We get better than better. He said, God love you and all that. And he gave me a hug and went on my way. Next night I was in 2+2 in West Los Angeles, in Westwood Boulevard. And I saw God, His love, on the church window, the melted window. And that really put me off. And what really crucified me was the word hope. I got very depressed and I wanted to leave. And Bob, who was sitting here tonight, came back with me. He said, you don't have to leave. And he came back and sat with me and listened to me. He doesn't like my telling these stories. But anyway, he helped me a great deal that night. He made me laugh. And I think within at the end of my second week, I was at Rodin and I heard Clancy speak. So in 2 weeks of sobriety, I heard Clancy and I heard Chuck C. And they had such impact on me that I realized that this was the best thing that could have ever happened to a person like me. And free. Didn't have to pay for it. Most amazing education I've ever had. And the years have gone by, and the days have gone by, and they've turned into months and years. I don't know how this works. I know that it works extremely well. But it is like the kingdom, I guess, that we've been looking for in peace and spirit. I don't understand it. Because what I put into this program and into this life is nothing compared to what I've got back. I've been given in abundance. And these last few years, it's like something has slipped away from me. Like, I keep thinking of those rocket ships that go off, and they jettison parts of themselves as they escape the Earth's orbit. It's like parts of some kind of ballast keep slipping away. And I feel lighter. And I don't understand it. I don't have to strain for it. I go to meetings and I hope I'm helpful. I hope I carry the message in my imperfect way. I'm in a profession where there's a lot of competition, there's a lot of drinking, a lot of drugs are taken. But I'm having the best time of my life. I'm having the very best time of my life. And I cannot take credit for it. I feel I cannot take credit for it. Somebody said the other day, you should. I said, well, maybe. But I got here because I had nowhere else to go. What's that green light for? Is that it? No. I had nowhere else to go. And I came to America in 1974 looking for fame, fortune, and a big pot of gold. And I ended up in Alcoholics Anonymous. Much to my surprise, it's the last place I ever intended to come to. So it's been an amazing journey. And the weird and peculiar thing I get about my life now, in a strange way, and I can't really describe it, is that in a strange way it's none of my business. I get out of bed in the morning and I'm not a deeply religious person. I don't know what I am. Sometimes I have a lot of doubt. Sometimes I think, well, maybe there's nothing there at all. But then I check out and I think, well, how have I stayed sober for 18 years? Through groups like Alcoholics Anonymous, the Pacific Group, through people like Clancy, through Chuck C, through Bob, through all of you. But how? So I don't analyze anymore. Try not to anyway. And just accept, because I said to someone when I got sober, I said, why did it happen? They said, why not? So from my not very smart brain, that's a good enough answer. Why not? This green light is staring me in the face. I don't really have much more to say, except that I'm immensely grateful. I don't want to go on talking because if I've run out of... I'm so grateful. This is the best thing that's ever happened to me. It's the best thing that's ever happened to alcoholics. And I go back over the years, and my spiritual home seems to be in Los Angeles. I live in England. That's okay. I come back here, and my car drives itself now. I know it so well here. This is my spiritual home, really. And I see old friends here that I haven't seen for some years. Saw Clancy at the beginning, and it's like a whole history. What I find is incredible is the longevity, is the actual continuity. The continuity. I saw my old friend Tommy here today, and it's the continuity. So many of us could have died, and so many are dying at the moment not knowing what's killing them. And I'm glad that night when I was able to identify myself as an alcoholic, when I read those 20 questions and I got 19 of them right. And I cheered. I thought, yes! I've identified the X factor. I've identified the brand mark. Drunk. And it's like a medal. And my drinking years are all part of my sobriety. I wouldn't have missed it. I don't want to go back there. But I wouldn't have missed it for the world because I've been given 2 lives. Not much more to say. Except I thank you very much. I thank Marilyn, I thank Clancy, I thank you all for a wonderful life. God bless you all. Thank you very much.
Hi everybody, my name's Mickey Bush. I'm alcoholic. I'm probably an addict too. In Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, I identify as an alcoholic and probably an addict because that's the way we like it done. We like to identify one alcoholic to another alcoholic. So in Alcoholics Anonymous, I like to identify as an alcoholic because that's the way we like it done. Seems to work pretty good that way. It worked pretty good that way back in 35 when Bill met Bob. It worked pretty good for me 19 years ago on January the 15th, 1983. And if you're new around here, if you're new like the folk we just give the books to, I've absolute faith and trust that if you're alcoholic, it'll work pretty good for you too. So in Alcoholics Anonymous, I identify as an alcoholic and probably an addict, because that's the way we like it done. Well, I'm a real alcoholic. I am a real alcoholic, a total alcoholic. Everything about me is alcoholic. Everything I say, do, think and feel is alcoholic. It's not just a part of me alcoholic or a big part of me that ain't alcoholic. I'm all alcoholic. See? Don't confuse me with anybody who ain't alcoholic or might not be alcoholic or only a little bit alcoholic. I'm all alcoholic. See? So being a real alcoholic, I have the right to be dysfunctional in as many ways as I like. Don't tell me I'm limited or restricted. So consequently, I do loads of other. I always drank, but I never only drank. I always drank, but I never only drank. See, I also did loads of other things. Lots of things. Good things. And bad things. Like drugs. I did mountains of drugs. And so consequently, I get invited to speak in Narcotics Anonymous meetings and Cocaine Anonymous meetings and other 12-step programs as well. And when I identify in their meetings, I identify as an addict and probably an alcoholic. Because that's the way they like it done too, see? And I don't have a problem with that today. I know you do, but I don't. Now, I know that some alcoholics didn't do drugs. Some alcoholics just and only drank alcohol. And if you're an alcoholic who just and only drank alcohol, a specialist, I'm really glad you're here. I'm no specialist. I'm a chemical gourmet, me. I told my sponsor I'm a chemical connoisseur. He said, no, Mick, you're a chemical kind of sewer is what you are. You know what I'm saying? So, the truth of the matter is, like a lot of you guys know me, and so you know that really, if there's a 12-step program of any kind, I'm a contender for it, Don't matter what it is, for heaven's sake. AA, NACA, ACA, overeaters, little Peters, it don't matter what it is, for Christ's sake, If there's 12 steps attached to it, I'm a contender for it, What can I tell you? I better back up a little bit and, tell you the rigorously honest truth, because I did actually go to a Little Peter meeting, but they wouldn't let me in, said I didn't qualify. They let water in, our taper. They let water in. I'll walk with all right. Yeah. So you get the picture, very sick, very, very sick. When I got to Alcoholics Anonymous on January the 15th, 1983, I was so sick that I never knew I was sick. Do you know how sick that is? Do you know how sick it is to be so sick that you don't know you're sick? That's really sick. And if you can relate, and maybe you can be like me. You come to a meeting like this, for example, and you come around and you're so sick, and you look around the room and you think, well, at least I'm not as sick as him. Do you know how sick it is to be so sick that you think you're not as sick as someone else? That's really sick. So if you're wondering whether you is or whether you isn't a real alcoholic in here tonight, I want you to know that I can relate to being as sick as you don't think you are. Really sick. And I never knew. I do today. I wrote a word for sick. I just wrote it. It's not on any of my sheets or anything. It's a new word. Sick. S-I-C-K. Spiritually ill can kill. Ooh. Ooh. And I never knew. I never had a clue, not till I got here. I'm really glad to be here, and this is a huge meeting. I never expected it to be a big convention like this, and real glad to be here, and I thank you for inviting me. And several of you have said that you know me through tapes and, oh, I got your speaker tape. I ain't got no tapes. I don't have nothing to do with tapes. I don't know anything about tapes. I know that if you're listening to them, you're bloody sick like me, I'll tell you that. Because I don't get through to no well people, you know. Walt's got all the tapes, Encore cassettes. They do a great job. Oh, this is really good standing here, you know. There's a big mirror there. I can see myself right there, look. Damn, this is good, yeah. For all you ugly people, I never came in this good looking, you know. I wasn't this good looking when I got here. I was definitely no bloody vision for you, I can tell you that. But today I like me quite a lot, you know. I never knew, you know, nothing about gratitude or anything like that. I do today. You know, I never knew about gratitude and a way of life. I never knew nothing. I never knew nothing about nothing. When I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I never knew nothing about nothing. I thought I knew everything about everything, but I actually knew nothing about nothing. Never knew nothing about grateful. Gratitude, wow. And you know what? I've had something to be grateful for all my life. All my life I've had something to be grateful for. Never knew it, because I don't see things like that. You know what I mean? But think about it. I just told you my name's Mickey Bush. Mickey Bush. Think about that. Mickey Bush. That puts me somewhere between a mouse and a president. You know what I mean? They must have known something when they named me as well. They named me after 2 beers, for heaven's sake. You know, Mickey's Big Mouth and Anheuser Busch, you know. But I never knew nothing about gratitude and grateful. I mean, but, you know, I mean, I am really grateful, for example, my name ain't Harry. Can you imagine going through life with a name like Harry Bush? Yeah, well, screw you lot, yeah. I don't know nothing about nothing. I love the beautiful book, Alcoholics Anonymous. I love this beautiful book, Alcoholics Anonymous. Anybody read the book, by the way? It's a good idea. You know why they coloured it blue and yellow? Because that's the colour we are when we come in, you know. For you guys who didn't pee before you come in, save your bladders all that pressure. Look, I'll tell you what Alcoholics Anonymous means. Look, ALCOHOLICS, Alcoholics. ANONYMOUS, Alcoholics Anonymous. A life centred on helping others lives in complete sobriety. Actions, not our names, yield maintenance of unity and service. And that's all there is, folks. There ain't no more than that. That's all there is. That's all there is, and it's right here in the beautiful book, Alcoholics Anonymous. I just came back from South Africa. I spoke at the South African National Convention. Travelled all over South. 29 days sober, look. Forgive him, that must be his parole officer. I thought it was my balls clanging together there. I mean, you can laugh. But I got told off for talking about the big book in South Africa. They told me off. I shouldn't have, pressed the big book. And, well, if I'm going to offend anybody for talking about the big book, in Russia they call it Tufsky Shitsky. You know? I love the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous, and I hope you do too. You know, when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous on January the 15th, 1983, I was so sick, dying of a disease I never knew I had. And I'm really glad that I never heard it was just suggested only. And I never heard things like that I was equal to you. I wasn't equal to you. How could I be equal to you? If I had been equal to you, what I had would have been equal to what you had. And it wasn't. I was dying of a disease I didn't even know I had. You guys were walking in the sunlight of the Spirit. I needed and wanted everything you had. You didn't want nothing I had. And I never heard, and I'm glad I never heard, that it was just suggested. In fact, I can't even find any literature that says it's only suggested we do the steps. If you do, let me see it. I'd like to read it. I knew how to work things like suggestions. You know, this book that says of itself, our book is meant to be suggestive only. Well, it may have bloody well meant to be, but it ain't. It's got clear-cut, precise instructions, directions and rules to follow. You know, and I'm glad that you guys taught me and taught me well. You know, I didn't know what happened on January the 15th, 1983, until I kept coming back. You guys gave me the message before I even got into a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. Before I even got into a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, I heard the message of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was living up there in West Hollywood, just above Sunset Boulevard. If you know West Hollywood, you know that it's a special part of town. Some folk here know, I guess. You know, it's the kind of town they commonly refer to it as Boys Town. You know, if you're not sure what I mean, it's the kind of town where if you drop your wallet on Santa Monica Boulevard, you've got to kick it up to Sunset before you can pick it up. You know. If you're gay, don't worry. I mean, no one cares anyway. You know, don't be offended. I just hit bottom. I didn't know it, but I just hit bottom. And I'd walked down to this meeting, an Architects of Adversity meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I know now that God had done for me what I couldn't do for myself. I know that as clearly as that gorgeous sun ray setting that happened tonight. Did anybody else see that out of the window? The gorgeous sunset this evening? Outstanding. Anyway, I walked down to this meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous in San Vicente Hill in West Hollywood. I'd just come off a run, you know, broke, busted, disgusted and not to be trusted. I was oozing booze and news from every pore of my body. I was grey, antisocial, foreign, aggressive. And as I approached this meeting, there was two dudes standing outside. Well, today, of course, I know them as greeters. I didn't know them then. One of them stepped forward with his hand out. I said, "What do you want?" He said, "I want to welcome you to AA." I said, "What?" He said, "Welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous." I said, "What?" And the other guy said, "Keep coming back." I said, "What for?" He said, "We love you." I said, "I bet you do." When dudes tell you they love you in West Hollywood, it takes on a new meaning, you know what I mean? But I didn't know they were giving me the welcome that we give newcomers. Newcomers are often surprised how we know they're new, don't we? Like our dudes here tonight. You know, I didn't know. Guy stuck his hand out and said, "You're new." I went, "How do you know I'm new?" But you know, I'm a blackout drinker. Any other blackout drinkers here? And the rest of you lying mothers, I know blackout drinkers when I see them. I'm a miracle drinker. I go out drinking and miracles occur in front of my very eyes. If you're a blackout drinker, you may know what I mean. Has anybody ever gone out and drank somebody good looking? Round about $26 worth of booze will make any old wretch good looking, you know. Sometimes you wake up next to it the following morning, you know what I mean? Done that. I woke up next to it one morning and went, "Oh! You're ugly! Get out! Get out!" She said, "You get out, this is my house." There's more people laughing than raise their hands. But I'm a blackout drinker. I don't know. I never even knew what a blackout was. I mean, I black out all my life. I came out of a blackout once walking down a street in Spain. I went out drinking in London. You know something's happened when you go out drinking in foggy, wet, rainy London and you come out of a blackout in sunshine with palm trees around you and stuff. Ain't no sunshine and palm trees in London. I was walking down the street with an Eskimo chick. Where the hell do we find them? We meet some weird wackos, don't we? That last day, January the 15th, 1983, I came out of a blackout sitting on my couch in front of my table, my coffee table. I went, wow. Now, if you're anything like me, you seem to remember little smatterings of memory, but it don't all fit together, and you can't quite place it together, and you know things ain't right, you know what I mean? It's like the beautiful book says, PAID, paid, pitiful and incomprehensibly demoralised, you know? I never ever came out of a blackout happy, joyous and free. I never ever came out of a blackout heading up a charity show or, you know, giving a kid a toy or doing something nice for somebody, you know what I mean? I came out of this blackout, I don't know where I've been, don't know what I've been doing. It's Tuesday. I went out drinking Sunday lunchtime. My best friend was visiting. He's a international businessman, he calls himself. International crook is what he is. You know? He was visiting from Spain. I called him up, and he was really pissed off. Told me, piss off, he said. Just piss off. I know it won't happen again, because I won't be in your company when you're drinking anymore. I went, what? We'd known each other all our life. We'd scavenged and scrounged our way out of the Second World War and robbed and cheated and lied and screwed our way around the planet a couple of times. And here he was telling me to piss off. Didn't know what to do. I felt all little inside and rejected. And there was another dude that had been hanging about a lot. He was an English rock and roll singer, and we were pals, and he'd been hanging around a lot. He just seemed to be around a lot. I didn't know it, but he was 2.5 years sober. He'd been 12-stepping me. I didn't know what he was doing or anything about that. But I needed to talk to someone, as I did, and I picked up the phone and called him. And he laughed. I said, what are you laughing at? He said, you. I said, why? He said, because you do weird shit, that's why. I said, what do you mean? And he laughed. Oh, big belly laughs. What do you keep laughing for? He said, you don't remember what you got up to over the weekend, do you? I said, no. He said, have you called your friend Mickey from Spain? I went, yeah, he told me to piss off. And he laughed. I went, I don't like being laughed at. Will you stop laughing? He said, you don't know what you got up to, do you? I said, no, what? He said, I ain't had a drink for 2.5 years. I said, how come? He said, because I used to drink like you. I said, what do you mean? I said, what happened? He said, well, it all started after you peed in that lady's dinner. I said, what? Oh, my God. I said, what do you mean? He said, your pal took us all out to that smart Beverly Hills restaurant for a special treat. He said, and in the middle of the restaurant, you got all ticked off at some old lady and got up and walked across the store and whacked it out and did it right in her spaghetti. I went, oh, my God. I said, I'll have to talk to you some other time. But I would do things like that, and I wouldn't remember. And I'd go back in that club or that restaurant 2 days later or something, and they'd take one look at me and go, oh, how the hell you got the balls to come in here after what you did? And I'd go, what do you mean? Because I wouldn't remember. And they'd call the cops or something, I'd be in trouble again and cart me off and that. That's what always seemed to be happening. And I didn't even know what a blackout was. I was in this meeting, and the guy said, you was in a blackout. I said, no, I wasn't. I don't know what it was, but denied it anyway, just in case. I didn't know it was a disease of denial. I do today. I wrote a word, denial. D-E-N-I-A-L. Don't even notice I am lying. You know? He said, yeah, we called it a blackout. I said, no, I was awake. I was doing shit. He said, I said, blackout, idiot, not pass out. I went, oh. I didn't know that you did things in a blackout that you didn't remember. like travel and other things, you know. You know, I don't know nothing about nothing. I think I know everything about everything, but I know nothing about nothing. You know, I'm an alcoholic, for heaven's sake. When my butt's on a bar stool, I know everything. When I'm drinking, I'll tell you anything. No matter what you do, I know about it. You want to know how the space shuttle blew up? I'll tell you, because I know. In fact, I only miss being on it by that much. In fact, if I hadn't have been drinking, I would have been on it. Because I know everything. But I actually knew nothing about nothing. It's not that I'm an idiot. I'm not an idiot. I'm a smart dude. I'm an alcoholic. I'm a happening guy. I've got a great education. I've got letters after my name, for heaven's sake. I've got a PhD. Pretty heavy drinker. But I don't know nothing about nothing. Went to that first meeting. This guy came walking across the room. Another English rock and roll singer. I went, "Oh, what are you doing here?" He said, "I'm leading the meeting." I said, "How come?" He said, "I'm 22 months sober. We've been saving you a seat." I went, ugh. Thought I was going to catch something. 22 months sober. He put his arm around me and gave me a big hug. I went, "Oh, oh, what are you doing?" He said, "Giving you a hug." I said, "I don't do hugs." I do today. You know. Guy said, "You're alcoholic." I said, "What?" He said, "You're alcoholic." Now, contrary to what a lot of people say, the beautiful book don't say we don't tell folk they're alcoholic. It says we prefer not to, we'd rather not. But on page 187, when Bill and Bob are doing the third man on the bed, they tell him, "You are an alcoholic." He said, "I didn't really think much about that. I figured I was just a drunk." They said, "No, you got an illness. There's something wrong with you." Guy said it to me. "You're alcoholic." "Alcoholic? You're an alcoholic." "I'm an alcoholic?" You're an alcoholic." "Alcoholic? You're an alcoholic." I thought that was bloody mean to say a thing like that. Say a thing like that to a dude. "What do you mean? You're alcoholic." "Why'd you say that?" "Because if it looks like a duck and walks like a duck and sounds like a duck and smells like a duck, it's a bloody duck. Just because you've been taking some shit and thinks he's an eagle, no, you're a duck. You're a duck, I'm a duck. Quack, quack," he said. I went, wow. Oh, alcoholic. He said, "I'm alcoholic." Alcoholic? Wow. Alcoholic. Alcoholic? Wow. Alcoholic, for heaven's sake. Wow. Alcoholic. Said I'm an alcoholic. Far out. Far out. Alcoholic. He said I'm alcoholic. I ain't nuts. I ain't crazy. I'm alcoholic. They've been locking me up in nut water all my life. I ain't nuts. I ain't crazy. I'm alcoholic. Far out. Being alcoholic was like a step up for me. I went, wow. Far out. Wow, I've been locked up in places cuckoos wouldn't bloody fly over, man, you know what I mean? Well, I couldn't wait to run back, and I knocked on Mickey's door. I said, "Hey, guess what? I'm an alcoholic. I'm powerless over alcohol. My life's unmanageable." He said, "No shit." I thought it was going to be a surprise. Everybody knew except me. I never knew, you know. Now, I never knew either what was different about January the 15th, 1983 as to any other time, you know. But I do today, because I did what you guys told me. You said, keep coming back. You didn't tell me to get out and go somewhere else. You said, keep coming back. Wow, and I did. And more got revealed, such as what happened on January the 15th, 1983. And I never knew. And it's a really strange thing. But you know what's not mentioned in the beautiful program of Alcoholics Anonymous in this book? Hitting bottom. Strange that, isn't it? Hitting bottom is not mentioned in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And that's why I think so many of us are confused about this. And I think it's a big detriment, and I think it's a great contributor to why 95% of us are not making it in Alcoholics Anonymous. It's far too many, isn't it? There has to be reasons why 95% of the folk who get here are not making a program that really works. See, and I never knew. But some of you guys did, and you taught me. See, I never knew that on January the 15th, 1983, I hit bottom. Didn't know what it was. Didn't know what it meant. Like I didn't know what it was to be an alcoholic. But you guys did, and you taught me. Later on, that duck and the eagle story became very important. Because I asked folk today, I run sober living houses and I work with a lot of notorious slippers and relapsers. And I asked folk, what is it about you that makes you alcoholic? Well, they tell me, well, once I start, I can't stop. No, I don't want to know what you do because you're alcoholic. What is it about you that makes you alcoholic? Well, I can't control my drinking. Yeah, alcoholics can't control their drinking, but I want to know what it is about you that makes you alcoholic, because in the beautiful book Alcoholics Anonymous it says, we learned we had to fully concede to our innermost self that we were alcoholic. This is the first step in recovery. It's the first step in recovery, but it's not the first of the 12. So what is it that makes you alcoholic? You know what? They don't know. How can they fully concede to their innermost self that they are if they don't know what it is about them that makes them what they're saying they are? In one of my sober living houses, I got 2 parakeets, a blue one and a green one. Bill and Bob is their name. And I've taught them to speak. And they speak. You can stand next to the cage and they'll screech out at you in a limey accent, I might add. I'm an alcoholic! I'm an alcoholic! I'm powerless! They're bloody parakeets is what they are. But they can say they're alcoholic. Well, I asked folk what it is about them that makes them alcoholic. You know what? They don't know. They can say they is one, but they don't know what it is about them that makes them one. And I didn't either. But some of you guys did, and you taught me. That duck and the eagle story, he was describing to me later on, when more got revealed, what it was about me that made me alcoholic. See, what it was about me that made me alcoholic wasn't what I do because I'm alcoholic. It wasn't the alcoholic addictive behaviour that transpired after I drank. It was something else. See, what he was describing to me was that what makes me alcoholic is the fact that alcohol changes my perception of reality. I have an abnormal reaction to alcohol, and alcohol changes my perception of reality. Alcohol does what he told me with the duck and the eagle. I go out drinking as a duck, have a few, and turn into an eagle and go swooping around looking for prey. Alcohol changes me from a duck to an eagle. Or Mary in my home group puts it as good as I've ever heard anybody put it. She's this delicate little dudette, bad-ass drunk. She says when she drinks she feels wittier, prettier and tiddier. You know? And I know what she means. I call it a nerd remover. Alcohol removes the nerdness. I feel like a nerd, I drink and I don't feel like a nerd. I feel like a nerd and I drink and I don't care if I'm a nerd. I feel like a nerd and I drink and you're a bloody nerd. Screw you. See, it removes the nerdness. See? That's what it is about me that makes me alcoholic, and I never knew that. See, I had to learn that. And that's what the book said I had to do. I had to learn that. I didn't already know. And on January the 15th, 1983, I hit bottom. Now, I didn't know what hitting bottom was either, but some of you guys did, and you taught me. I asked folk to give me their bottom. I asked folk, give it to me. Give me what, roughly speaking, was your bottom. You'd be amazed at what I get told. I get told, well, I was hustling the Broadway, feet to the curb, trying to earn $1. Well, I was broke, busted, disgusted, and not to be trusted. Well, I was locked up in a penitentiary, married to Bubba. You know? Nothing to do with hitting bottom. See, in meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, we say, well, it's different for everybody. Everybody's bottom's different. Better not be different. Better be the same. If we understand what hitting bottom is, but it's not in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, so how would we know? Well, some of us had to teach the others, didn't we? See, hitting bottom wasn't the outside circumstances and conditions of my life like I thought they was and like I described to you. See, hitting bottom was an inside job, not an outside set of circumstances and conditions. All that, the kids were took off me, I had no job, I was laying in detox, I was homeless, helpless, powerless. All that is the outside circumstances and conditions of my life. It's not hitting bottom. That's outside stuff. Hitting bottom's an inside job. That's why those celebrities and millionaires I sponsor have to hit bottom just as devastatingly as those guys on Skid Row I work with. See, hitting bottom's not about I know that the mentality of the alcoholic is one geared towards selfishness and worldly clamours, as the book says, and we consider how far down we went, but that's not what hitting bottom is. Sometimes those outside circumstances enable us to become capable of hitting bottom, but in and of themselves, they're not the bottom. And if you think they are, I got news for you. Here, in recovery, you will hit bottom after bottom after bottom and get sicker and sicker and sicker if we don't understand what it truly means. And on January the 15th, 1983, I can remember quite distinctly what happened. Amazing. I absolutely know it was God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. On January the 15th, 1983, in desperation and despair, helpless and hopeless, absolutely, totally powerless, I can remember, without knowing what I was saying or who I was saying it to or what I was going to do about it, but I can just remember, in desperation, saying something to the effect of like, "Help me, please help me, what is wrong with me? I can't stand this anymore." Anybody relate to that? And asked for help. That's what hitting bottom is. Having been rendered powerless by the disease that I don't even know I got, helpless and hopeless, I asked for help. ASK, Ask Saving Kit. Help, H-E-L-P, His ever-loving presence. And you know what? It was almost like the old man seemed to be looking over my shoulder. And he just seemed to say to me, "Mick, you silly bugger, I've been waiting for you to ask. Now get yourself over to that AA meeting." Sent me to you. I asked for help, and he sent me to you. Wow. I asked for help, and he sent me to you. That's why I know that God and the power are different. See, we have so much confusion from folk talking about, "Well, I have problems with the Godship." No need for it. In the first two steps, do you see God, Jesus, Buddha, Allah, Muhammad, higher power mentioned? Not even mentioned. Call it bloody Mashiganovich if you like, we don't care. No one cares. A power greater than self. I was helpless and hopeless. I had an illness that I couldn't beat and that could beat me. A lot of people don't seem to recognise that. I was powerless over it, but it wasn't powerless over me. It could and did kick my butt. I was powerless over it. That's why I know today that I can't not drink just because I want to. I can't just because I got a desire not to. Having a desire not to is the only requirement for membership, but I can't rely on it. I got to have a desire, but I can't rely on it. It's like hope. You can have hope, but you can't rely on it. I got to have a desire to quit, but I can't rely on it because the disease I got is more powerful than my desire not to. I got to have a desire not to, but then I got to do these steps and this work so that I don't do what I already don't want to do. And if I ain't doing these steps and this work, or don't know what these steps and this work is, I will do what I don't want to do, because the disease I got that I'm powerless over will make me do what I don't want to do. You think I knew that when I got here? I don't want to drink today, but I've got a disease that does. And that disease that does is more powerful than my desire not to. So I can't just rely on the fact that I don't want to drink today. All we got is today. In the beautiful book it says, we feel elimination of our drinking is but a beginning. Far greater demonstration of our principles lies before us in our respective homes, occupations and affairs. So yes, we have to stop drinking, and one day at a time is how we do it. But that's only a beginning. If you want to stay at the beginning, have a bloody party. I don't. Elimination of our drinking is but a beginning. So yes, we have to do that before then going on to do all this other stuff. Now, I never knew that. How would I know that? I wouldn't know about You know, the second step came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. Well, I'd been locked up in nut wards all my life. I've been in like crazy. I've been chained down and ostracised from society and locked away and shot up with tranquilizer drugs and zapped on electric machines. Don't volunteer for that, by the way, if you know, it don't work, you know. But, you know, I don't know nothing. I mean, that's not the babbling lunatic insanity that we're talking about around here, is it, in the second step? Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore me to sanity. Well, people who are sane don't need restoring to sanity. But what does it mean? You guys described insanity as being repeating the same behaviour and expecting a different result, drinking. So to be restored to sanity meant not drinking. So here was a power that made it possible for an alcoholic like me to not have to drink, which was restoring me to sanity. See, I asked for help and he sent me to you, because here was the power that he provided to enable a drunk like me to not have to drink. So if you've got an understanding of a God of your own understanding, and most people don't, but they say they do, if you've got an understanding of a power greater than yourself, thank it for Alcoholics Anonymous. Because here's the power right here, right now. Me plus you is a power greater than me. You plus us is a power greater than you. Together we can do what we couldn't do alone. I couldn't stay sober, you couldn't stay sober, but together we could stay sober. Wow. That's why if ever you've seen it, the word me, M-E, if you flip it over, it becomes we, don't it? We could do what I couldn't do. Here was a power greater than myself, provided by the old man, to help a drunk like me not have to drink, which was restoring me to sanity. Wow. That's why I know that God and the power are different. This power is not the totalness of God. So once I've been restored to sanity of not drinking, I can then make a straight decision in 3. But as the 12 and 12 says, we've warped our minds into such an obsession for destructive drinking that only an act of providence can remove it from us. Well, most people never do 1 and 2 properly, so they've still got a warped mind. So they make a decision in 3 with a warped mind. 1 and 2 is supposed to unwarp our mind to become capable of making a straight decision in 3. But the very first line of the first step is, who cares to admit complete defeat? Practically no one, of course. And you know what? It took me a long time to realise what it was saying. Who cares to admit complete defeat? Practically no one, of course. Well, it took me a long time to realise that if practically no one, of course, cared to, practically no one, of course, does, so there's practically no one, of course, who has, so there's practically no one, of course, to ask, how the hell do I? But when the new guy does go up to some well-meaning person and ask him, the guy doesn't say, no good asking me, pal, I'm in the practically no one, of course, department. He says, lip-flapping, party-line bullshit like, keep coming back, one day at a time, don't drink no matter what. And the poor dude's tearing his arse out and he can't understand why he can't stay sober. You know. So in 1 and 2, there's no such, there's no such mention of the word God, and yet the power is there, isn't it? We got it right here, right now. When it's written by any spiritual readings that you want to read, doesn't matter, the Quran, the Torah, the Old and the New Testament, the Bible, wherever you want to read spiritual writings, it's written, when any 2 are gathered in my name, there I will be in your midst. And that's what happens here, doesn't it? When 2 alcoholics come together for the purpose of recovery, the third factor, and without that third factor it don't count. You know, without the third factor, you can go down any skid row in any town in any country in the world and see drunks hanging out together. Drunks have always hung out together. There ain't no big deal about that. But we got the third factor, see, which is for the purpose of recovery. When 2 alcoholics come together for the purpose of recovery, God comes in our midst and produces a power greater than either of us. So it's produced by us, but it's greater than us, and we can absolutely depend upon it. And in the beautiful book Alcoholics Anonymous, it says, with this attitude you cannot fail. Pretty good guarantee, don't you think? I liken it to this water we're drinking. You know the formula for water, H2O. 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen, water, life-sustaining. It's the same here, isn't it? 2 drunks, 1 God, power. Power over alcohol. Pretty good stuff, don't you think? I don't walk around claiming I'm powerless today. I know some of you guys do. It's all I hear in meetings most of the time. Powerless, powerless, powerless. Powerless, powerless over everything, powerless over people, places and things, powerless, powerless. The word powerless is only mentioned once in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Once. And that's in the formation of the very first step. Otherwise it ain't mentioned, powerless. Power is mentioned over and over and over. New power has flowed in. We have recovered and been given the power to help the next guy. Praying only for knowledge of his will for me and the power to carry it out. Another time. Power, power, power. Power is mentioned over and over. Powerless is mentioned once. And all the drunks are walking around going, powerless, powerless. Strange that, isn't it? Powerless. I got so much bloody power over alcohol, I don't know what to do with it, for Christ's sake. I said to my sponsor, what shall I do with all this power over alcohol? He said, give it away. I said, wow. Think about it. In and of myself, I was helpless and hopeless and powerless, and I asked for help, and the old man came into my life and sent me to you. Here was a 12-step spiritual fellowship. Here, you with the one day. Why don't you sit down and listen? See, I asked for help and he came into my life and sent me to you. It was a 12-step spiritual fellowship. You guys introduced me to a beautiful book, Alcoholics Anonymous. A big book, you called it. B-I-G-B-O-O-K. Believing in God beats our old knowledge. In the beautiful book was a program. P-R-O-G-R-A-M. People relying on God, relaying a message. You called it a 12 steps program. S-T-E-P-S. Solution to every problem, sober. It was our solutions. Saving our lives using the inventory or needed steps. Solutions. It said if you want to quit drinking and drugging and you don't replace the drink with the program, you'll go crazy, you'll go nuts. I said, what do you mean nuts? He said, N-U-T-S, not using the steps. Remember, you deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it's too much for us. So get a sponsor. S-P-O-N-S-O-R. Sober person offering newcomers suggestions on recovery. That's what a sponsor was. Holy. Why do I want a sponsor? To help you stay sober. What do you mean sober? S-O-B-E-R. Son of a bitch. Everything's real. That's what sober was. Wow. Powerless? Why would I say I'm powerless? I spoke in Scottsdale just recently and a guy came up to me. He said, I told my sponsor what you said about powerless. I said, yeah. He said he didn't agree with you. I said, yeah, a lot of useless sponsors don't. Well, you think sponsors ain't bloody useless? Most of them are. I said, what didn't he agree with? He said, powerless. Wow. We got so much bloody power over it. To me, when I hear people walking around Alcoholics Anonymous claiming powerless, powerless, to me it's the disease getting them to deny the power that's in their life. Why do we do that? We got to get next to the power, the conscious contact. I want double up of everything. A, B, C, D. I want AA, B, B, C, C, D, D. AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. B, B, Big Book. C, C, conscious contact. D, D, don't drink. We got it right here, right now, haven't we? Don't go around like denying it. And I'm glad that I heard that. And I'm glad that, I heard the stuff. And I'm glad that the guy yelled at me loud enough in that very first meeting. And I'm glad that today people call it abusive. But, I'm glad that he yelled at me loud enough to get past the voices that were already talking to me. Who relates to the voices that talk to them? You know them voices that just said, what voices? Them bloody voices. You know them voices? Give me that water, mate. You know the voices. Sometimes the voices are sitting on the edge of the bed. Says, I'm glad you're awake. I've been waiting to talk to you. You know what I'm saying? Guys, you're crazy. You know the voices. You're a piece of shit, that's what you are. You're going to get fired today. Ha ha ha. She's doing your best friend. He's getting some. Guys, you're crazy! Why, today I've learned I don't have no conversations with anybody who ain't in the room. I mean, 'cause it drives you nuts, doesn't it? Especially like me. 'Cause apart from anything else, I don't hear things right. I got a hearing problem. I was talking to my man up there, the one who just gave me the marble. You know, they gave me the marble because I lost all mine. You know. Some little delicate dudette come walking by. She said, "Excuse me." I said, "Seduce you? I'm talking to this guy." I said, "Excuse me." She said, "Seduce me." I don't hear things right. Anybody else got a hearing problem? I never have. I've never heard things right. I got selective hearing. Years before I got here, I never heard things right. So people said, "You're weird." Any other weirdos here? All my life people said, "What is wrong with you? What the hell's wrong with you? You're goddamn weird, you are. Do you know that? You're weird, you are. What the hell's wrong with you?" I wouldn't get it. What the hell are they talking about? What is wrong with you? And they would ask me what's wrong with me as if I knew. What is wrong with you? The hell's wrong with you? They'd ask me what's wrong with me as if I could give them an answer. Oh, actually, I've got a twofold disease. It's an obsession of the mind and an allergy of the body. I can't control my drinking. Don't know what's wrong with me? What the hell's wrong with you? Why do you drink like you do? Why don't you drink like I do? Because I don't know, see? I don't know nothing. I don't know nothing about nothing. I'm from northwest London. I don't know. You probably picked up on that, right? This is the way I speak. Alcohol never done this to me, folks. Yeah. And I don't know nothing. I don't know what's wrong with me. You know, years before I got here, I don't hear this stuff. When I was a young dude living in my mum's house, I would come home drunk. And my mum, I mean, she heard everything that went on in that house, you know. My mum was a dynamic lady. She still is. She's 85 years old. But, I mean, I really did think she was born with eyes in her arse, for Christ's sake. Because she never missed a trick. Didn't matter what went on in that house, she knew about it. And I would come home sneaking around, stumble-bumming around, and she would be in her bed, and she'd hear me, of course, and she'd yell out down the stairs, "Drunk again, son!" And I'd yell back, "So am I, Mum." You know? She'd say, "I'm not bloody drunk, I've been in bed since 8 o'clock, the hell's wrong with you?" And I still wouldn't get it. I think, well, why did she say she was drunk then? She's messing with me is what she is. Because I don't hear things right, you know. Years later, when I get to Alcoholics Anonymous, guy said, "Get a job." I said, "What?" He said, "Get a job." I said, "What?" He said, "Get a job." I said, "I don't know what you mean." He said, "Go to work." I said, "What?" He said, "Go to work. Go to work, get a job, go to work." I said, "I don't know how I'd get there." "Get a bus." "What?" "Get a bus." "I don't do buses. Never took a bus. I'm smart, but I don't know how to get a bus." I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll rehearse getting a bus. I walked down to Sunset, stood at a bus stop. There's buses going by. Lots of people on them. I thought, I've got to be able to get a bus. Buses are full up with people. Bus came along, I jumped on the bus. "Do today, put some money in the deal, in the trap." I went, "Oh yeah, sure, put it in." Stood there waiting for something to happen. And the bus pulled away. I went flying down the bus. I landed up against this chick with these big ones. She said, "Move your hands." Well, I don't hear shit right. I went, "Sure," squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. They threw me off the bus. All right for you. I don't know nothing about nothing. I don't know I'm weird. I don't know what to do or how to do it. I don't know about walking in the sunlight of the Spirit. How do I know about that? You know, the God of my understanding that I was raised with, you know, was a fearful, threatening, punishing God, for heaven's sake. You know, you said, "Let go and let God." I said, "What?" He said, "Turn it over to God." I said, "What?" He said, "Pray to God." I said, "Pray to God? If I pray to him, he'll know where I am." You know? I've been ducking God for years. Why would I pray to someone who was going to strike me blind for playing with the old ding-a-ling? Oh, you heard that as well, huh? They said, don't touch that, you'll go blind. God will strike you blind. Well, you know I did anyway. When I found out how good it felt, I thought, well, I'll risk one eye. You're very sick. You're very sick. But I do today. I know about walking in the sunlight of the Spirit. Why wouldn't I? You know, guys taught me well. You know, and I feel it my duty, especially here, even here after Layla speaking today. 21 years, the lady just gone out and had to give up her sobriety. She's like completely wacky on Vicodins and other drugs. See, they say that we shouldn't mention drugs in Alcoholics Anonymous in case an alcoholic, you know, came to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting and heard a lot of drug talk and didn't relate, and then went out and didn't come back because he didn't relate. Well, you know what? Don't clap on your own. Someone will throw you a fish. To live with me, you know. I apologise. This is after 19 years. Can you imagine what a smart ass I was when I was drinking? But you know what? In 19 years of working with many thousands of alcoholics and addicts and standing on the firing line every single day, I have never once heard an alcoholic say he ain't coming back to AA because he went to an AA meeting, he heard a lot of drug talk, and he didn't relate, so he ain't going back. I've never heard that. We have buried thousands that came here and didn't hear that it was absolutely essential that we didn't do other mind-altering chemicals. And if you're an alcoholic in here tonight, if you're an alcoholic in here today, yes, we're talking about alcohol, and yes, we're talking about alcoholism, and yes, we have a singleness of purpose, and that's to carry the message to the person who still suffers. You don't look like none of you lot are suffering. I'm glad to see. But you know what? When I got to Alcoholics Anonymous on January the 15th, 1983, so sick I never heard what I was supposed to hear. It's a strange thing. In 1953, in Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, in 1953 in North Hollywood, alcoholics in Alcoholics Anonymous meetings started Narcotics Anonymous. In 1953 in the Radford group in North Hollywood. This is all documented, you don't have to just believe me. Alcoholics in Alcoholics Anonymous meetings started Narcotics Anonymous. When I came along in 1983, beginning of 1983, Cocaine Anonymous was just being founded by some good friends of mine at the time. And I'm blessed and grateful to have been around at that time. Because I came to Alcoholics Anonymous on January the 15th, 1983, and never drank from that day to this. And I still haven't. Not a drop has passed my lips from that day to this, and I never came to Alcoholics Anonymous to quit drinking, knew nothing about Alcoholics Anonymous, never knew what it was to be an alcoholic, never certainly stood at no turning point, don't even know where the bloody point is. But I never drank. But I told you I do lots of other stuff, and I do. And so I carried on doing all of that. I was not drinking in Alcoholics Anonymous, but still doing all those other mind-altering chemicals. And there's an old saying around here, there's no greater pain than an alcoholic who relapses or slips and goes out and has a belly full of booze and a head full of AA. Well, I'll give you pain worse than that. You stick around these rooms and get a sober belly without a head full of AA. And you will hurt so bad. You don't want to do that. You don't want to hurt that bad. Because that's what happens around here. Alcoholics get clean and sober and don't replace the alcohol with the program, and they get in so much pain just being sober they can't stand it, and they have to drink again. Sober people drink again. People living in sobriety don't. And that's what we got here. We got a way out that we can all agree upon. And I came here and I never drank, but I carried on doing all the other dope that I do because I do it. Like I like pot, for example. Anybody here smoke a little pot? Anybody smoke a lot? Yeah. I ain't got a problem with pot. Pot only does two things to me. It makes me horny, makes me hungry. Nothing wrong with that, except that some mornings you wake up with a sore arm on a bed full of pizza crust. But apart from that, Oh, you do that sick stuff, huh? I like speed, crystal crank. Anybody here do a little speed, crystal crank? Anybody do a lot? Yeah. Did it make your dick disappear too? You ain't gonna get that in no Betty Ford manual. Fire up some crystal, your dick will disappear. Funny how the ladies seem to relate to that. All the dudes are going, not me, rock on, Tommy. The ladies are going, sure, yeah. But if you're alcoholic in here tonight, hear this and hear this good, because I never. It has to include all other mind-altering chemicals that affect you from the neck up. We have to be clean and sober, unaffected. Page 86 tells me that. I cannot afford to give God the finger and expect to get recovery. And in 1983, my good friend Johnny Siegel, who started Cocaine Anonymous and who OD'd and died 2 years ago, he was writing out the formula for Cocaine Anonymous, and he wrote, we admitted we were powerless over cocaine and all other mind-altering chemicals. I said, hey, John, you can't write that. He said, yes, I can. I said, no, we took a group conscience. We're going to take Cocaine Anonymous and run it on the same length as Alcoholics Anonymous because it's proven that it works. I said, no, you can't write the cocaine and all other mind. Yes, he said, I can. I'm going to. That's what I believe it ought to be. I said, no, I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous and I don't drink, but I still do all the other shit. He said, yes, that's why you're bloody insane, he said. I went, what, you got to give it? Yes, he said, everything. That's why I celebrate my clean and sober birthday today on May 8th, which is the day after May 7th, which is the day after I did like mind-altering chemicals of any kind. I've been clean and sober from all mind-altering chemicals because I couldn't afford to be giving God the finger like I was, and I never knew I was giving God the finger. I never knew I was giving God the finger by taking a mind-altering chemical. But what else would you call it? On page 86 of the beautiful book, it says our thought life will be on a much higher plane, for after all, God gave us brains to use. Well, if he gave me a brain to use, he gave me the brain he wants me to have. He don't make no mistakes, and if he gave me a brain he wants me to have, he gave you a brain he wants you to have. Well, what else would you call it but giving God the finger by taking a mind-altering chemical of any kind? If he gave me the mind he wants me to have, it's like saying, well, thanks for my life and my girlfriend back and my bank balance and all that, but that mind you gave me, I don't think you did a very good job with that. I think I'll take over from here. I don't think I like that mind you gave, so I'm going to take this mind-altering substance to change that mind you gave me. What else would you call it but giving God the finger? Can't afford to give God the finger and get any recovery around here. So it has to include all mind-altering chemicals. And you know what? I'm sorry to have to tell you, people like Johnny, I miss him dearly. He was a good friend. Couldn't do for himself what he helped me do several times. We have people dying and relapsing because they're not hearing that it has to include all this stuff. 5 times in the last year and a half, I've spoken at Icky Par conventions. You know what Icky Par conventions are, probably. Icky Par International Convention of Young People in AA. They have them all over. They're good to see it. You know, 5 times. These are the young troops coming through the ranks of Alcoholics Anonymous, folks. These are alcoholics, young troops coming through the ranks of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was at one meeting where a 10-year-old girl took a 3-year birthday cake. Some of these guys are 25 years old and got 10 years of sobriety. The young dudes coming through the ranks. In 5 conventions as big as this, I always ask the one question, is there anybody in the room that just and only drank alcohol? And in 5 conventions of young alcoholics in young people's meetings, not one hand has been raised. What am I going to tell them young troops? To get out, go somewhere else? No. And if you're an alcoholic who doesn't understand that, don't tell them to get out, go somewhere. Direct them to people like me and others like me who may be able to help them. Alcoholics who did alcoholics. I love my sponsor. I love my sponsor. I didn't go for somebody who had what I wanted or I related to. I went to somebody who was opposite to what I was, to teach me different to what I do. My sponsor's he's a retired now, but he's a retired appellate court judge. I love him with a love that I don't know how to describe. Been my sponsor for 15 years. Teaches me how to apply these principles to all my affairs. Like when I asked him what it meant, principles before personalities. He said, in your case, Mick, it's these principles before your personality. Put these principles before every aspect of your own personality, he said. But he teaches me how to do things around here. How to apply these principles to all my affairs. Now, I don't know about you guys here in Reno. Perhaps you're not sick like us guys down there in LA. But our affairs seem to get quite muddled. I've seen some of you vamping around in here tonight looking for those affairs. You know, looking for Miss Right or Mr. Right. Or Mr. Right now, I do, you know. We get to apply these principles to all our affairs, especially our personal relationships. I wrote a word for relationships. R-E-L-A-T-I-O-N-S-H-I-P. Really exciting love affair turns into outrageous nightmare. Sobriety hangs in peril. Yeah. Oh, you are sick like us down there, huh? You know, that laughter that you hear, that laughter, the language of the heart, H-E-A-R-T, healing, enjoying and recovering together, the language of the heart, the music that we hear, the laughter of one alcoholic relating to another alcoholic, for heaven's sake. What a treat. That's why I keep coming back here, that's why I do what I do. You know, those folk out there, those other folk out there, they don't understand us. That's why we come together to do together what we couldn't do apart. My own mum, love her dearly. She loves me dearly. But she don't understand me. She don't know me as well as you guys who've never met me. Every year I go home to London, England to see my mum. I'm going next week. I leave here on Sunday. On Monday I fly to London and then 2 days in London, then go to Galway for the All-Ireland Convention. You know? And I go home, and every year I go home to my mum's house, and as I told you, she's 85, and whatever year it is, like this year, I go home, I'll knock on my mum's door, say, Mum, I'm 19 years sober. She says, so is the cat. She don't give me no pat on the back for not doing something I shouldn't have done anyway. And she ain't sick like you lot. She don't laugh at seemingly hopeless situations out of the past. Like my favourite page of the big book this week. My favourite page of the big book this week. Page 132. I love page 132. But I love the bottom of the page. Page 132. So we think cheerfulness and laughter make for usefulness. Outsiders are sometimes shocked when we burst into merriment over a seemingly tragic experience out of the past. But why shouldn't we laugh? We have recovered and have been given the power to help others. Wow, what a gift. To recover from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, been granted the power to help the next guy. What a gift. What's the theme of our conference this week? Carrying this message, a primary purpose. Wow, what greater gift is there? Power. My mum don't laugh at seemingly hopeless situations out of the past. She never used to laugh when I come home and puke on the cat. Have you ever puked on a cat? That's weird shit, I'll tell you. You come home and you can feel it coming. Because I'm a puker too. Any other pukers here? Ain't no dribble-ass puker like... I'm a directional puker, me, like... large chunks, projectiles. You come home, you can feel it coming because you know it's coming. You swallow it back down. Shut up. But then you know it's coming, it's going to be a gush of... right on the cat. You look at it weird like that, you think, oh, I don't remember eating that. Then the cat gets up and runs off. Bits of carrot hanging on it and shit, you know. That's weird, isn't it? Where does that carrot come from? I can promise you in my entire life I never once sat down and ate a diced carrot. Yet every time I puked, there the bugger was. Carrot and corn. Carrot and corn. Cat running off with carrot and corn all over it, yeah. My mum never laughed at that shit. You know, my telephone number is 818 Are You Sober? 818 area code, not 800, you cheap bugger. 818 Are You SOBER. And you can reach me anytime wherever I am over the world. you can reach me on that number. 818-RU, like Toys R Us, SOBER. And I leave you that number because when I got home from that very first meeting on that very first day on January the 15th, 1983, dazed and confused, I got home and I had 2 telephone numbers in my hand. Now, I know you don't, but I did call one of those numbers. I called the number and the dude answered the phone. I said, I don't know who you are, pal. I said, but I got your number in my hand. Oh, yeah, he said, I can tell from your accent. I saw you at the meeting today. I said, oh, was you at the meeting? He said, yeah, I gave you the number. I said, what about them meetings? He said, what about them? I said, how long have you been going to them meetings? He said, 4 months. I said, 4 months? What does that mean? He said, I'm 4 months sober. I said, wow. I said, you go to them meetings at night? He went, yeah, every night. I said, oh, can I go to one of them meetings with you tonight? He went, well, normally, yes, but he said, I've made arrangements to go to a movie tonight, so I'm not going to a meeting tonight. I said, all right then, it don't matter. Went all little and rejected again, you know how we do. And he picked up on it like we do. He went, holy shit, what is wrong with me? I said, what's the matter? He says, you may have just saved my life. I said, no, I never done nothing. He said, I'm 4 months sober and a newcomer wants to go to a meeting, and I tell him, no, I'm going to a movie. Holy shit! Where do you live? I'm coming round to pick you up. I said, what about your movie? He said, you're much more important than a movie. I said, I am? He said, yes. My best friends had just told me to piss off. Here was a guy who I didn't even know telling me I was more important than his plans. And holy shit. And he came round. I went out to his car. He was a weird bugger too. I went out to his car. He had a little red Fiat car, but it was all decked out like a Mercedes with a big emblem and wheels and shit. I didn't know it. I was getting my first lesson in alcoholic grandiosity, for God's sake. But he took me to a meeting and got me a beautiful book, Alcoholics Anonymous. A 3rd edition, not like this 4th edition. I still got it, and it's got lots of miles on it too, and I love it. And you know what? I told you I work in recovery, and we got a lot of our troops, and we do things like the book says. There's a vast amount of fun about it all, and we do things together, and we have a lot of fun about it. And a little while ago, we were down there in Balboa Park in San Fernando Valley, and we had a picnic down there, and a whole bunch of us went to this picnic and had a good time. And was walking around the picnic, and I bumped into old Zach, as a matter of fact, and was pleased to see him. I said, oh, Zach, how you doing, man? It's good to see you again. What you doing on this side of the hill? He said, I'm speaking at the meeting today. I said, far out. And guess what, folks? He's still 4 months ahead of me. See, it's a program of action, isn't it? It's a program of action. The actions we take. I got news for you, too. If you're wondering whether you is or whether you isn't a real alcoholic in here tonight, I want you to know. Here's a pretty good clue. If you're not sure whether you're alcoholic in here tonight, you better not have laughed. Because they say if you're laughing, you're relating. And if you're relating to a sicko like me, there ain't no doubt about you, pal. Because I don't get through to no well people. Well people don't laugh at my shit. You people laugh with me, you see. I don't cuss so much from the podium anymore. I throw in a few shits here and there. But they're messages to me. I wrote a word for shit, S-H-I-T. Simply how I think. Some of you lot think I'm full of it, so I wrote a word for you guys too. Crap. C-R-A-P. Carrying resentments against people. But I'm staying here. You told me keep coming back. And I have, and I'm going to. I ain't going nowhere. I'm staying right here where I belong. I'm staying right here where I was sent on January the 15th, 1983, in desperation and despair. When I hit bottom and asked for help, he sent me to you. Here's where he wants me. Here's where I was sent. Here's where I like to be. Here's where I'm better off. I'm Mickey Bush. I'm an alcoholic. I'm in an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. I know what's wrong with me, and I know what to do about it. I'm staying right here with you, where I belong, where I ought to be. I'll risk the Pacific group not liking me. I'm staying right here with you, and I told you I'd travel, and I travel a lot. I've been all over the world, drunk and sober. And no matter what program you're in or whatever recovery aspect you're talking about, the 2 most prolific statements that are made all over the recovery world, no matter where you are, the two most prolific statements that is mentioned in 12-step recovery in all phases of recovery, no matter what program it is. And I want to just take this opportunity to welcome and thank our Al-Anon friends, our lovely Al-Anon family groups. You know, I really appreciate that. And it's a pity our Alateens are just, you know, even in South Africa we had Alateen groups. And if you're an alcoholic with Alateens, you know, don't miss the boat. Let them Alateens that you've got, those teenagers, know about Alateen and encourage them to become. Don't miss the boat, folks. I love our Al-Anon groups, our family, F-A-M-I-L-Y. Father and Mother, I love you. Our Al-Anon family groups, you know, they got the best deal in town. They got our beautiful, wonderful 12-step program, and they can drink. I knew they were here because I could feel myself being released, you know. My Al-Anon sponsor told me to, God grant me the grace to keep my tongue in my face. You know? But no matter what 12-step program you go for, you know, the two most prolific statements is keep coming back one day at a time. And guess what, folks? Neither one of those statements is in the beautiful book, Alcoholics Anonymous. But please do it. God bless.
Woo! You light up my life. Oh, yes, you gave me hope when I didn't know there was any hope for me. Thank God for each one of you. I just love you. My name is Liz Bailey. My anonymity shot to hell for a very long time. I'm the most definite alcoholic you ever could lay your eyes on, and a very grateful alcoholic. Hi, everyone. I feel so honored and privileged to be asked to come to Tampa. I'm privileged to go anywhere at 73, believe me. But it has been a terrific honor. And I want to thank the committee and Mike and Christy. And I can't start naming names because you guys follow me. Sober, thank God. Drunk, you wouldn't have followed me around the corner. But thank God you've been following me. Dolly and all of you, it's just wonderful to be with you. And I haven't gone out and gotten anybody a new story, because the one I got here with was Lulu. And nobody's told me it's gotten better out there, and I believe you. If you can make it back here, I welcome you back. But again, I'm going to have the same story, and would you all-timers and all of you pray that I reach somebody here tonight? Because that's my primary purpose, is to stay sober. And that's why I hit the road and the planes and the trains and the buses and the subways, because I want to reach someone to come into this beautiful fellowship. And we don't promote AA. We don't promote it at all. We attract you. And I love it when you all said, I want what you got, Liz. Oh, my God, ain't nobody ever said that to me, you know. And then nowadays you're telling me, oh, I want what you got. And I said, well, I got it in AA, and I keep it in AA. Thanks to John and Beverly for being here with me again. And they're part of my life. John has been in my life for 30 years, and he's still with me. And that's another nice thing about AA. You get lasting friendships. It's so beautiful, so beautiful. Now, there was a preacher preaching. And he says, if you drink, I want to thank Jimmy and Mike for coming to the airport getting me yesterday. And I'm going to tell you something real cute. They was there with my name up, and I went over and I kissed Mike. Hi, Mike. Then I went over and kissed Jimmy. Hi, Jimmy. And there was another little fellow standing there, and I said, are you with this crowd? He said, no, but I'll take a hug. So I hugged him, you know. So I got them all out the way, right? Yeah. So if you're near me, you're going to get it. You're going to get it. This minister was preaching, and my minister friend is with me this weekend again. We've been privileged to be together quite a few times, thank God. A couple of you here this weekend have been with me before, and I've been with you. Bless your heart. And you know, this minister said, if you drink alcohol, you're doomed to die. And the little old lady down front, she said, amen. He said, now if you smoke those cigarettes, you're doomed to die. And the little old lady, she said, amen. He said, now if you chew tobacco. She said, look at that, he's done stopped preaching and gone to meddling. So I'm going to go to meddling. You know, the truth hurts us, but the truth will set us free. Never forget that. I'm the oldest of 5 children. And I learned last night that Irene and I were born in the same hospital. Different dates, of course, and the hospital isn't there anymore. But at least we got a chance to get born there. In the Cumberland Hospital in Brooklyn. That's where I was born. And oldest of 5 children. Jeanette, I haven't gone out and got you a new story, baby. I'm going to give you the same stuff warmed over. Believe me. And my mom made my first drink at the age of 12 years old. And when I look back, I was a stone alcoholic at 12 years old. I don't know anything ever about social drinking. I don't know ever about crossing any lines. I've seen a hell of a lot of lines, though. But I don't know about crossing any of them. And my mom made rice wine from ingredients that she received from the welfare, such as rice and raisins. And she made it in a large crockery. And to show you the difference, my girlfriend Marion was with me. And my mom allowed us to sieve this rice wine through cheesecloth. And the difference was that Marion sieved and sipped 2 drinks and she went home. But I sieved and sipped. And I sieved and I sipped. And I sieved and I sipped. And I sieved and I sipped. And I put on a drunk at 12 that was a drunk. My mother lectured to me all night long. I went out in the street the next day shaking my little self, telling my friends, whew, what a ball I had. I'm 12 years old. I don't even remember what the hell happened. And that began to be the pattern of my life. If you didn't drink and get drunk and pass out, you didn't say too much for me. At the age of 14, I began to sell King Kong booze. The man made it in the bathtub next door. And I mean, it was King Kong. It stood you straight and it knocked the hell out of you, too. And I sold it for 40 cents a cream pitcher. Now, someone suggested that I take mayonnaise, olive oil, butter, and cream. You know, line yourself up. You know how they tell you to eat a good meal? Honey, that King Kong was so powerful, it went all through the mayonnaise, the olive oil, the butter, the cream. I stopped taking that sick stuff. And I drank me plenty of booze. I made good money. And at a certain hour, I had to be padlocked into the side room. Now, one night I'm laying out the window, and I see this sharp dude. Lord have mercy. Whew! He was so sharp, I almost fell out the window. And I saw this roll of money, and I said, oh, there's a live one. You know I was always looking for a live one. I look for the live ones in AA, too. I don't look for no deadheads in AA. No, I don't look for deadheads. I deal with those that are going and doing and giving. Those are the people that I deal with. So I went down, and I latched onto this little dude because he had a roll of money. Got down there and found out it was a $5 bill around a lot of ones. I latched on to him anyway because he's cute. You know, real cute. He started taking me from uptown Manhattan down to the Lower East Side, and I began to hit all these joints so that they could give me a play. At the age of 14, I felt that I was a woman. I'm drinking, I'm partying, I'm hanging out. So I run up to my mom one night, and I said, Mom, would you sign for me to marry this man? He's 10 years older than myself. She says, oh, no, dear. Over my dead body. That man will have you out in the street, and you'll live a terrible life with that man. And I found out something about myself at the age of 14. Don't you ever, but never, tell me what not to do. Don't do that. There's something in my nature when you tell me what I can't do, look like it makes me want to do it. And pay all the prices. I paid a hell of a lot of prices. I stayed in AA because they suggested everything to me. Nobody has ever told me what to do in AA. Thank God for that. So I quit school at 14. I took sleep-in jobs. I was drunk every Thursday and Sunday. At the age of 17, I left New York with this very man, determined. The more you preach, the more I'm going to get him. And so I left. And I went to Baltimore, Maryland. The 3rd day of January, 1939. I'm standing in a courthouse being married. And I'm crying my heart out. And the minister stopped the wedding. He says, my dear young lady, would you mind just telling me what you're crying about? I said, at last I got him. Well, I'm going to be honest with every one of you in this auditorium. That was the sorriest day of Mr. Bailey's life when he said I do to Liz Ulrich. Mr. Bailey never stopped crying from January 3rd, 1939, till he went home with the Lord August the 12th, 1986. That was a sorry day for that man. Now, I'm 17. And you could imagine what, I'm 73 now. Could you picture what I was at 17? Woo! Get down with it. got this marriage license. No more mama. No more neighbors. Nobody's going to tell me how to live. No, 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 no. I done got this dude, Lord, and I'm going to tear up New York. My husband came home and he gave up every liquor joint. He gave up gambling. He gave up hustling. He gave up going to parties. And he sat down. And I became a mental case at the age of 17. Because here I am, raring to go, and this cat is sitting. And he sat from January 3rd, 1939, till he went home with the Lord, August the 12th, 1986. And, honey, let me tell you, I couldn't take that sitting down. I couldn't take it. And I started nursing my little drink through the week. I look forward to weekend drunks. Now I have to have a drink to wash, to iron, to cook, to talk. Then I began to watch changes come over me. I began to curse. Every word came out of my mouth was a curse word. I watched another change. I began to fight. I began to fight everything and everybody. I watched another change. We can see the changes. I began to leave my house from 1 day to 3 weeks at a time. I'm watching me go down. Many people pull me up on the carpet. Why do you drink the way you do? Why do you act the way you do? You have a beautiful home. I didn't call it a home. It was a house. There was no love there. I had every material thing any woman on this earth would want. Mr. Bailey happened to be a furrier girl. And every time I had a period of dryness, just when I couldn't drink no more, it was coming out of my nose and my ears, I had to lay low. He'd make me another fur coat. I had fur coats like beans. And one year he made me the most gorgeous leopard coat all of you ever laid your eyes on. He threw a party for the job. He brought that coat home and he threw it out on my bed. And I looked at that coat and I hated it. I gave it away. I said he made it so he could spot me anywhere. You know? In sobriety, I wished I had that coat many times. I do. It was so beautiful, drunk. You know, that's another thing I always say today. As long as you stay in the active disease of alcoholism, you can never really see how sick you are. You really have to get sober to see how sick you are. Because nobody could tell you how sick you were till you get sober. And there again, I continued to drink. Now, Mr. Bailey was a non-alcoholic. And I said to him one night, and I think some of you non-alcoholics might have heard this, maybe if you drank with me, I wouldn't want to drink so much and roam. Mr. Bailey went around and got a bottle of Gordon's gin. And we laid up in the TV room. And about 11 o'clock, the bottle got like this. Now, any drunk in here knows what happened to me. I panicked. Because that's not going to last me till the morning. And the liquor store is going to close at 12 o'clock. So I took my elbow and I hit him. I said, Daddy, would you run around and get a bottle for me before the liquor store closed? He said, no, Liz, I've had enough. Oh, I wanted to kill him. You know that. I wanted to kill him. You ever see an Indian on a rampage at 2 in the morning? Here I am, up, dressed, out, zoom! Aren't you afraid to go underneath the Long Island Railroad at 2 in the morning? Well, who the hell was thinking about the railroad? I wasn't thinking about the railroad. I was getting to Sutton's Barn Grill so I could fill the Coca-Cola bottle full and sit there and close up the place. I continued to drink. The word is identification now. Don't compare, but identify. I woke up one morning and my head was coming off my body. I took Alka-Seltzer. I took aspirin. I took BCs. I put a raw egg in the beer. I'm doing all this kind of stuff to straighten out my head. I couldn't get my head straightened out. I reached over and I grabbed the Bible off my night table. I figured, well, I'm going to find the answer in this Bible, how to straighten this rotten, filthy life of mine up. And Mr. Bailey passed my room. Put that Bible down, you hypocrite. Put it down. 20 minutes to an hour, you'll be so drunk you'll be slapping one of the kids down. He was right. Nobody got in the way of me getting a drink. And nobody gets in the way of me staying sober. Same difference. I'll walk all over you, around you, and about you, and to you, and I'm gone. I'm gone to get my sobriety. And so he kept his mouth going. And I used to say to him, Daddy, try not to talk to me when I'm coming off a drunk. Or, Daddy, please don't try to say too much of it to me if I'm drinking, you know. And Daddy wouldn't keep his mouth shut. And he kept his mouth going. He said, you'll be hopping a cab. And the cab driver said, please take somebody else's cab. Took me 3 days to clean up my cab behind you. Who the hell is he? I paid 50 cents to get in that cab. Don't tell me who to take. Or I would be swinging a corner. And Mr. Bailey kept his mouth going, and kept it going, and I didn't want to hear him. I literally ran and jumped up in the second floor window. This is the first time I ever thought about taking my life. I'm standing directly in this second floor window, and I'm going to throw my body down into the yard, and there's a little lady named Nana Backer. Mr. Bailey! Mr. Bailey! You better get her! She's going to jump! And he comes out this window, the kitchen window. I see his hands come out. He says, Nana, will you let that bitch jump? I'll be rid of all my problems, all my troubles. Let that bitch jump. Well, you know, I looked over at him. I wanted to know who the hell did he think he was? I guarantee every one of you I got down out of that window. I got back into bed, and I pulled that sheet over and slept that one off. You know, the nerve. The nerve. I continued to drink. I began to hit hospitals. Girls, please don't ever fry a frozen chicken drunk. Don't do that. I hit the grease saw and burned up both of my legs. And the good sisters, every time you look, broken fingers. If you see my arm all sliced up, putting your hands through, I didn't have no trouble with the second step when I got here. Believe me, I didn't. And total insane, putting holes in the walls. I don't care what I drank outside. I had to have a cigarette and a can of beer when I got inside, and I'd be in a couch full of fire and all this. And I'll tell you, total insanity. Insane. And I remember so clearly, one of my neighbors pulled me up on the carpet. She says, I'm very much ashamed to live next door to somebody like you. I had to get sober to realize that we affect 9 people around us. I had a slogan before I got here, to each his own. I'm drinking this stuff and you don't want for anything, and I'd lay your soul to rest for messing with me. And so she said, and I'm ashamed to live next door to you. I bought this house to get away from people like you. Would you mind telling me what's the matter with you? I said, oh, I suffer with my nerves. And she suggested that I drink rum. Isn't that nice? I loved her standing in that little bitty kitchen. I lived in Jamaica, Long Island. I ran around to the Empire Liquor Store and I bought a bottle of rum. I'm still waiting for one of you drunks to tell me how in the hell did I wake up in Briarcliff, New York with the bottle of rum. I don't know. Now this is identification again. A beautiful lady took me into her home named Wig, and I became a booze fighter in Briarcliff, New York. I'd put a shot in my coffee. I'd call it Coffee Royal. I'd hide the bottle all day. I don't care where I hid it. I found it. I'd be upping and booping when the poor soul came home. She didn't know what to do with me. And one night she sat me by the fire. She said, you know, Liz, you're a lovely person, but drinking is your problem. She says, I put my husband out of here for his drinking. And she kept lecturing to me. And now I'm so full of guilt and remorse because I'm up someplace that I don't know where I'm at. I'm away from my 3 children, and I don't know what's happening to me because I can't put this booze down. So I said, well, I'll sit in the Catholic Church all day just so I don't touch a drink. Well, I did. I sat in the church till 4 o'clock. I walk out the church and I walk straight into the bar. Identification now. Would you please give me one drink so that I can relax? Nana sat in the church all day, but I need a drink to relax. Because I'm going to peel this lady's potatoes tonight and get her dinner started. Would you give me the second drink, please? So that I can really go get her potatoes started and her dinner ready. The third one they gave free, so you don't walk out on a free drink. That's not nice. That is not nice. I never walked out on a free drink. Then I've got to buy one back to look good. It's very important that I look good. And then when you get to the 4th or the 5th drink, the hell with on her potatoes, baby, let's roll. So you know the lady never got any potatoes from me, you know that. I came back to New York because my little girl wouldn't eat. And Mr. Bailey would always throw me out in brown bags and shopping bags, and now I'm sleeping in an unfinished basement. Don't drink down there. Don't smoke down there. Take care of my children in the day till he let me back in. I continued to watch me go down. I never forget, I went out and had a lousy $2 beer drunk. I came in and Mr. Bailey said to me, oh, look at this, you're drunk again and no dinner. I said, I've told you don't argue with me. I told you to keep quiet. I said, do me a favor, see me up to the bedroom. I remember he walked me 3 steps. I had a black suit on, a gold coat. When I came to, I was stretched out on a bench, a policeman sitting at the foot of me, people walking on the ceiling, my front 2 teeth doing one of these things, and blood all over me. And it took me 3 weeks to find out what happened to me. I totally blacked out on that 3rd step going up to my bedroom. And it took me 3 weeks to find out. I tried to kill Mr. Bailey in the blackout. I had smashed up everything in my home, and I had to be bashed in the mouth to knock me out. I had gotten so violent. And the guy standing in the door at the hospital did like this. Big guy. I went over to him, and I don't know how I answered the questions. But he said to Mr. Bailey, take her home. And when Mr. Bailey, I said to him on the way home, man, don't you lay down. Don't lay down. Please don't lay down. Because I'm going to get you if you lay down for taking me to some hospital. And Mr. Bailey was smart. He sat up in chairs for 3 nights. He never laid down. And I'm glad he didn't, because I might have gotten him, because I'm crazy now. And I continued to drink. He came to me one day and he says, Liz, you're the nicest wife when you're sober. Drunk, you're a Jekyll and a Hyde. Why don't you try this AA? When you desire a drink, run over to the phone and pick up the phone and call someone to talk you out of the drink. I don't know about Florida, but I know up in New York and going across this country, I don't hear this anymore about telephone therapy. They beat that into me when I got here. Pick up that phone. You might save another person's life on the other end. It's not just your life. It's a we program, not a I, me, my. Well, I'm not going into the flowery words of what I said to Mr. Bailey, because cursing is my character defect, and I really have worked hard on that, not to use profanity. I'm not going to stand up here and tell any of you that I'm perfect, because I can say something nice to you. Would you please move that over there? Monday, right? Tuesday, darling, would you please move that over there? Wednesday, dear, didn't I ask you Monday and Tuesday to move that over there? Thursday, move that so-and-so thing, and everything moves. And I have to say to my family, I'm out speaking to people all the time. I don't curse nobody to get them to understand me. I don't like doing it in my home. I really don't. But I found out some people don't understand you talking nice to them. They think you're weak, sick, and simple. You know? So I just cut them out and go on. Then I ask God to forgive me, you know. I ask him, please forgive me. Well, Mr. Bailey did what Dr. Granite just said to him. I want you to go home and tell Mrs. Bailey she's either going to drink herself to death, she will drink herself into a mental institution. There were no detox units when I came to AA. There were no halfway homes when I came to AA. We had nothing that you have today. I brought the drunk home with me. I laid he or she on my living room couch, and I took care of you over a weekend and for days to save your job and all that. And then when I saw you on your feet, I drug you to 7 meetings a week and 3 times on Sunday. You were going to get it. You were going to get it. And not all of them got it. The only one I've ever kept sober is Liz. I've always been the winner by staying sober myself. And there again, I continued to drink after I cursed him out. And what happened is that I watched me go down. I'm watching me go down. I'm going to tell you about my last drink. I'm drinking with hard, two-fisted drinkers in the VFW hall on 110th and Merrick Road. I could never stand anybody who took a drink and sipped on it for hours. You got on my last nerve. And I didn't bother with you. I didn't bother with you. See, I wanted somebody that was drinking like I was. And there again, I got a phone call this day from one of the guys in the post. I took and banged the phone up on him because there was a lady coming to see me to sell some insurance for the house. I hadn't seen her since I was 8 years old. I really wanted to see her, and I know me now. I know me so good that once I pick up a drink, I'm not in the position to tell not one of you in this room what's happening to me behind it. I don't know what's happening to me. I woke up so many different places. I've been beaten to a pulp so many times that I couldn't come out of my own home for 2 and 3 weeks at a time. I know what it is to be in the streets of New York. I didn't come into AA through a bedroom. I came in through the streets of New York. And there again, I got the second call from this gentleman. And I said, man, don't bug me. Leave me alone. There's a lady coming and I really want to stay here and see her today. This is my last drink I'm telling you about. I banged the phone up on him the second time. I remember I went around to the store and I came back. He was on the phone for the third time. He said, Liz, do me a favor. Hop a cab. I'll introduce you to the people. I'll put you back in the cab and I'll send you home to your company. I go, oh, geez, let me get a cab and go over there because he's not going to let me stay in here today. He's going to drive me up a wall. So I go over there, and the booze start lining up, and the jukebox is going, and I'm singing, you always hurt the one you love. The one you don't want to hurt, oh, give me another drink. Smile if you're happy. Give me a drink. Smile. I could sing them old Weeping Harry songs. As I said, I'm 73 and I haven't seen Miss Lindbaum till yet. I woke up in one of my son's twin beds. Please don't ask me how I got in this twin bed, because I can't tell you. At the foot of this bed stood my mom and Mr. Bailey. And my mom's got her head going like this, and she's screaming to the rooftop, somebody done something to her. Somebody done something to her. And I look over at Mr. Bailey, and he's got his head going. And he's saying, no, Mom, nobody's done anything to her. She happens to be a very sick girl. He didn't call me bitch. You know my name was bitch, right? He said I was a sick girl. I got right up out of that bed. I went to the basement of the house, and I stayed in the basement 2 days praying to die. I wanted out. And I looked at my oldest son, 12 years old, sitting there reading a book. And this is how I spoke to Richard. I said, Richard, I can't live like this. This is not the way I want to live. Look at this. You can't depend on me for anything. And I started to scream, and oh God, please help me. I've never screamed to God so as I did the second night in that basement. And God answers you. Because something said to me, just as clear as I'm speaking to you, try this AA that your father has told me about. I took the telephone book down off the closet, called AA, and they didn't have anyone to send me. Intergroup was at 28th Street and Lexington Avenue, one flight up over a bar. I got there and I said, to hell with AA. Then I said, no, you've taken the bus, the subway, you've run a couple of blocks, try to get up there again. I got into the middle of the landing. Whew, and if you don't call this a higher power, what is it? Because as I went to turn to go down into the bar, a lady looked down the stairs at me and she says, are you having trouble? I said, yes, ma'am. And I went running up the stairs to her. She escorted me in the front part of the office and she introduced herself to me and she started to tell me about her life. Oh my God, who talks about themselves like this? My mother says put it in the rug, under the rug, in a closet, open up a drawer, shove it in there. Don't you dare go out and tell anybody where you got the black eyes, the busted mouth, or the fights in your house. And I'm listening to this woman and I'm identifying and I'm saying, why don't you put this stuff in a garbage can and make sure she got a lid on it, you know? Because I would never tell it before AA. No way, I didn't have time anyway. But, yeah, I was busy out there, honey. I was very busy. And what happened is that she turns to me and she says, it's the first drink. I said, oh, come on, sweetie, I've been drinking for 19 years. She said, Liz, when you pick up one drink of any type of alcohol, even down to cough medicine, it is only a matter of time that a compulsion sets up into you that you have to go all the way. Woo! I see myself take 2 drinks on a Monday, great. 2 lousy drinks on a Tuesday, you're looking for me. Wednesday, I'd go to Gert's department store, I'd buy a 5th, I drank the whole 5th and nothing happened. Went back there Thursday and bought me another bottle. Friday, I'm knitting without needles. Have any of you knitted without needles? But Friday, I'm walking up and down and I'm knitting. And I've got to go get that drink to get me back in focus. And she said, we do it 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 1 hour, 1 day at a time. We do it with meetings. We do it with a sponsor. When I came to AA, there was 150,000 members. There are 2.5 million members today, and don't not one of you tell me you can't find a sponsor out of 2.5 million. I don't want to hear that. Yeah. Because it's a we program. You cannot do this alone. I don't care who you are. I've never seen it done alone. It's done with a we. We can do together what I could never do alone. So true. And then she says, you want to go to South Jamaica or Jamaica? And I chose South Jamaica. I don't know about you girls, but my hair stayed drunk. I never could keep my hair nice. Mr. Bailey would give me money for clothes, and I never looked too tough because I wanted to drink up the money. I'm going to my first AA meeting, and I get my hair done nicely, and I buy a little two-piece blue suit. And I go to my first AA meeting, and there's two girls behind the coffee counter. And they look up at me and said, you don't look like an alcoholic. I said, what the hell did I get myself into? Let me get the hell out of here. And I started running out the room, and we always kept two people at the door when I came to AA, you know. Yeah. Because like I said, this was the last resort. And as I'm going out the door, this man hits me over here on the shoulder, and he says to me, what's the matter with you? Where you going? I said, those girls said I don't look like an alcoholic. I don't know what an alcoholic looks like. I'm about to lose my mind. This is just how I did it. I'm about to lose my mind, my home, my children, and everything through drinking. He said, have a seat, sweetie. You in the right place. They put two tables together that night, and they all sat around, and they shared their strength and their hope and their experience. It is but for the grace of God. Whew. But for the grace of God. Alcoholics Anonymous. Al-Anon. Alateen. Alatat. OA. GA. PA. NA. EA. FA. The only A I haven't spoken at is Sex Anonymous. And I refuse to go to Seattle, Washington to put my sex life on tape. How about that? You know, to come across this United States, and I have a family. Just July the 11th, I came into AA July the 11th, 1952, and July the 11th, 1994, I just celebrated 42 years away from my last drink. And I want every one of you to remember that I'm not cured. I am definitely not cured. The progression of alcoholism is still going on inside of me. If I pick up one drink, I would go up like paper. Zoom. You see? But it wouldn't be the drink to kill me. It would be the guilt and the remorse that would kill me. I know where the answer lies for 42 years. Is sitting in a room for one lousy hour or hour and a half and no dues or fees. And back in New York, I'd give them hell. Because you know why? I never had a car in my whole sobriety. And every night a different dude picks me up, you know, and we got that instant love. And my neighbors say, oh my God, from a drunk to this, what is she putting down? Oh, I still upset my neighbors. And I don't tell them what I'm putting down, but I know what I'm putting down. Because I must never forget the day that I didn't know what I was putting down. Didn't know. And they told me to get sober for myself. Not for my mother. If I had to stay sober for my mother, I'd have been drunk. My mother did not like me telling you I was an alcoholic. It took my mother 29 and a half years to tell me to stay with them A's, whatever they are. See, and I don't plan to leave these A's. I know about these A's. Mr. Bailey couldn't stand me sober. Mr. Bailey took my first 10 years, and I mean he worked overtime to get me back into the streets of New York. But I thank God you didn't tell me to get sober for Mr. Bailey. 32 years ago, I had the honor and privilege of speaking for our late co-founder, Bill Wilson, at the Hotel Commodore to 2,700 people that night. Mr. Bailey shook my hand and said I did a good job, but when we arrived back at the house, he banged and he screamed that he had to get rid of me. that he couldn't stand me in this sobriety another minute. And I used the third and the 11th step at 3 o'clock in the morning, and God spoke to me like I'm speaking to you. If I pick up one drink, I don't have Liz. When I pick up one drink, I don't have Mr. Bailey, and I didn't have him anyway. And when I pick up one drink, I'm not in that house. See, my friends take a drink and go home. I take a drink, I leave home. See, I don't stay. So I know me. Know me very good. And there again, I went back 8 years ago to take care of Mr. Bailey in his last days because I want to tell you something. Many years I've stood on these platforms and told you how much I loved him. I really did love him. You know why? He kept the house while I was in the streets. He kept the 3 children going while I was in the streets. He kept everything going. He could have cashed it all in. But you know what, girls? I'm back in that home today. And what's so nice is paid for. But I was so happy that I could go and make his last days happy. I have some good news for you. I have an older son who has hated my guts for 41 years of my sobriety. And he let me know that under no uncertain terms would he ever forgive me or forget me. And I had to come into AA to learn how to forgive myself because I was ignorant as far as alcohol and alcoholism. You got to remember 42 years ago nobody was talking about alcoholism and drugs the way they're doing today in many years. And I found a God in AA. It took me 5 years. And I found a God that has forgiven Liz Bailey 70 times 7. So any man, any woman, any child that wants to hold my past over my head, I've got to let it be their problem. It is not mine. And I keep love and prayers in my heart. February 14th last year, just coming out of my 9th operation, I've been cut to pieces 9 times in 41 years. God keeps bringing me back. And he keeps bringing me back stronger every time. And all through these rooms. There's power in this room tonight. The theme that we have this week, the Spirit, it's here, whether you like it or not. It's here. Because we're all sitting here under the common cause of cleaning up our lives to live better lives. Where there's 2 or more, he's in the midst of you, whether you like it or not. And he'll do for you what you can't do for yourself. If you keep coming in these rooms, you've messed yourself up when you cross this door sill. You'll never drink and drug in peace again. No. I haven't seen it happen. You can't do it. You walked into the power. He tells you the power is within you in 11 steps. It's within you to keep your life straight. And there again, I'm happy my son Richie is now speaking to me. But it took 41 years. Don't give up before the miracle. Don't give up. Just keep loving your heart for them. God does the work, not you. You ever notice what your self-will do? Nothing. It cause you trouble. But if you do that 11th step, he says, you sought through prayer and meditation to have a conscious contact with your higher power, praying only for his will. His will. Because my self-will kept me in trouble. And the power is within me to carry out his will, not Liz's. Again, I had a beautiful son named Dennis, was an alcoholic and an addict. And I used to say to Dennis, the right road may be hard, but you'll be the winner. The easy road, the price is heavy. 24 years ago, June 25th, my son was shot and killed. My father hung himself while I was sober. Oh, you're going to be tested in sobriety, sweetie. Oh, yes. I'm living here to tell you you're going to be tested. But if you pass those tests that are given to you in this life, he's got something good for you. He's got something good for you. Yes, wait patiently. You'll see. And there again, Dennis was shot and killed. My father hung himself. My sister went into Manhattan and jumped 30 floors. Isn't it wonderful I didn't have to pick up a drink about any of that? I used to drink for everything. Drink for every reason. I didn't have to do that here. And I didn't do it alone. I did it with many beautiful people. Dolly is even one of them. John. They were all with me, right with me, through it all. You don't have to do anything alone anymore. In fact, you don't have to drink anymore or drug anymore. There's too much help out here today. Too many places that you can find yourself. I have a beautiful daughter. I stopped drinking when she was 5. I thank God today she doesn't remember me as an active drunk, so she would use my drinking to hurt herself a little bit more. And she'll look at me today and she says, I can't be like you, Mother. I don't ask anybody to be like me. Be yourself. To thine own self be true. She's just coming out of her 6th mental breakdown. I've had 6 horrible months past. But you know what I know? I got the message. This too shall pass. It's not going to stay this way. It's not going to stay this way because I'm suffering under her. I'm going on the 7th of September for consultation so that I can learn how to live with a mentally ill daughter. I do not know how to live with my mentally ill daughter. I've been using the AA principles on her, and it's working because she acts like a drunk most of the time. She acts just like a pure drunk. Her slickness, you know, I say she's sick and slick, you know. And I'm right ready for her slickness too, you know. Because I've been dealing with drunks a long time, and I'm one myself. I have a beautiful AA baby named Adrian Anita. I named her after AA. She's 38 years old. She's had 12 children. She's got 6 living. So it makes me have 12 grandchildren that I see by appointment only. And I want you to believe that. I don't do no babysitting. I do not do no babysitting. No. I've raised my children. I'm not raising any adults anymore. I'm not raising them. I have 2 great-grands that I never dreamt that I would have, and 1 grandnephew. I've had a fantastic life in Alcoholics Anonymous. I've gone up and had 3 operations in 6 weeks. The doctor said, you have cancer. He says, I'm going to give you 6 months to live. I said, please don't talk to me like that. I'm in a fellowship that teaches me I live one day at a time. I'm now 27 years an arrested cancer patient, and my motor's running fine. Oh, yeah. Again, I'm telling you, you're sitting in the most powerful fellowship in the world. I had a heart attack. I had my throat cut from ear to ear. They took 2 glands out. I couldn't speak. I said, okay, Lord, you through with me speaking? It's all right. You're not through with me. He brought me back more powerful. I have to stand up here and say, cool it. I've seen you come up half the chairs with the power that's within me come out. I've seen it. Last year, I was cut open and closed back. I've never seen anybody open and close back to tell you about it. And I called the nurse in the room one night and I said, I want to make a confession to you. What is it, Miss Bailey? I said, I feel like I'm dying. And I want to make a confession to you that I have tried to live a good life. I've really tried to live this good life. And I believe in God. Oh, Miss Bailey, you don't tell God when to take you. He knows when to take you. I said, let me shut up with this woman, you know. She said, good morning, Miss Bailey. How are you? I said, you know, I seem to die in the night, but I sure come alive in the day. One of my friends coming out from work had a pocket full of money, and the guy said to him, stick 'em up. He said, man, don't you see I got a disease? And the guy ran from him. He said, Liz, he didn't even wait for me to tell him I'm an alcoholic. And I cracked up on that one myself. I went to the kitchen floor. Because I hated that word disease when I got here. I said, Mr. Daddy, what am I going to tell my friends when they ask me to have a drink? He said, tell them you got a disease. I said, like hell I'm walking around telling people I got a disease. And I looked it up in my dictionary and it says dis-ease with oneself. I readily tell you, I have the disease of alcoholism. I love each one of you. I've made amends to my loved ones, thank God. There's only one person in 42 years I haven't made amends to, and that's my bartender. I owe him $2. He'll never get it. I sent his children to college. Yes, I did. I bought that man a new Cadillac every year. I sat there and watched it go up and down Jamaica Avenue. And I just want to take one of you to Vermont and show you the house I bought him. It would injure me to give him the $2. See? And the place closed down when I stopped drinking. It hasn't been there in 42 years. It's an athletic club. You see, so who are you supporting and killing yourself? You got to think about that. And I think about that. And I thank God for each one of you. Let's have a beautiful weekend, huh? Set it up to be good. Because, see, I do that at 10434 199th Street, Hollis. When I walk out that door, I'm going to Tampa. Woo! And I'm going to have me a natural good time. And I do have a good time. I don't know what's going on around me because I'm having a good time. You know? And I do feel so honored and privileged of being with you this weekend. God is good all the time. God is good all the time. And you know He's good every time I'm hitting these planes and trains and buses and subways. When I get back in my house, I almost want to kiss them dirty floors. Woo! You got me making it again. I tell Him, you got me making it again. And He does. And it's no secret what God can do. What He does for others, He can do for you. With His arms wide open, He'll carry you through. Please believe it. I live it. I don't just talk it. And I live it, and it's wonderful. And of course, I want to say this to the committee. Thank you again for all the work that you put in this year. These places, conventions, take a year or more to put together. It's a lot of work. How about let's give them a round of applause? Yes, yes. I have a primary purpose, and my purpose is to stay sober. And every time I'm allowed to share, I pray very hard that I reach just one of you. My daughter will say to you, oh, there she goes to save the world. No, I'm not looking to save the world. I just want to touch one, that you'll stay here. And for my friends who traveled so many miles today to be here tonight with me, oh, God, I love you. I do. I just love you. Because you just keep showing me that I'm not doing it alone. I'm doing it with a higher power that took me 20 years to put Him first. Seek God first and His kingdom and His righteousness. It has nothing to do with religion. It's strictly spiritual. Because we have a spiritual sickness, whether you like it or not. And if you can put God first, then all things will be added unto you. And again, if I've touched just one tonight, then I, Liz Bailey, I have not lived in vain. Thank you so much.